Go ahead.
I told you I was here.
This week, we had to say goodbye to one of the great artists of our time. David Lynch passed away a few days before his 79th birthday. Born on January 20th, 1946 in Missoula, Montana, his father, Donald Lynch, had graduated from the University of Montana with a doctorate in forestry before doing 4 years in the Navy during World War II as an engineer on the USS Mugford. He then became a federal employee for the U.S. Forestry Service. The Department of Agriculture had been a big part of the New Deal under Secretary of Agriculture Henry Wallace. And throughout David Lynch's childhood, his family moved all around from Montana to Idaho to Washington to North Carolina, all before he was 14. On behalf of the USDA, and finally to Alexandria, Virginia, where David Lynch went to high school. He rebelled against the quiet Presbyterianism of his parents and saw school as destroying his seeds of liberty. But he also joined the Boy Scouts and rose to become an Eagle Scout. David Lynch wanted to be an artist and he decided to become a painter, first attempting to study at the School of the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, which he said completely lacked inspiration for him. Then he tried to go learn painting in Austria with Jack Fisk, who would go on to be his production designer, and came back to the States after 2 weeks. Then he moved to Philadelphia, enrolled in the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts. He met and married his first wife, Peggy, in 1967, and by the next year they had a daughter. His interest in film came after he had the idea that he wanted to make his paintings move. His first short film was 6 Men Getting Sick. Which led to a prize and a commission to do a film exhibition from a fellow student. He had his wife Peggy star in The Alphabet. This installation led to David hearing about the American Film Institute Conservatory, where he sent Alphabet and the script for a new film, The Grandmother, which was approved, and David packed up his wife and daughter and moved to LA. Seeing The Grandmother, George Stevens Jr. recommended that he apply to the AFI Center for Advanced Filmmaking. David's idea was for a film called The Garden Back, but the feedback was so frustrating that he almost quit the conservatory. Scrapping Garden Back, he began working with his friends Sissy Spacek, Jack Fisk, Frederick Elms, and Alan Splett on Eraserhead.
Do I just cut them up like regular chickens?
Sure, just cut them up like regular chickens.
The production lasted from 1972 to 1976. The film ballooned from 42 minutes to 89 minutes, and they quickly blew through AFI's $10,000 grant, so funding was a problem. This was also when David split with Peggy, his first wife, and by 1977 he was married to his second wife, Mary Fisk. Cannes Film Festival and the New York Film Festival rejected Eraserhead, but the LA Film Festival accepted it, and Ben Barenholtz saw it there and loved it. Getting it put onto the midnight movie circuit, it was discovered by Mel Brooks' producer, Stuart Cornfield, who loved it and showed it to Mel Brooks, who also loved it, calling David Jimmy Stewart from Mars. David Lynch asked for help and for help finding a new script to direct. Stuart Cornfield found the Elephant Man screenplay, and they agreed to produce it for Brooks Films.
It's been a great disappointment, George.
No, Mr. Merrick, no.
No son as loving as you could ever be a disappointment.
If only I could find her so she could see me.
The Elephant Man was a huge critical and commercial success and netted 8 Oscar nominations. After that, George Lucas offered David the chance to direct Return of the Jedi, but he ultimately turned that down. Then, Dino De Laurentiis offered to put David Lynch under contract for 3 projects. If the first one was based on Frank Herbert's Dune, that ended up being the most disastrous and hard film that David Lynch had to shoot, since he didn't have final cut and the desire to make a new Star Wars completely compromised his vision. After the 1984 Dune flopped, David went back to writing his own scripts. Taking ideas he had since 1973, David Lynch wrote and directed Blue Velvet.
Oh, Mommy! Mommy! Mommy!
Mommy loves you.
Baby wants to fuck! Get ready to fuck! You fuckers, fucker!
The controversy around Blue Velvet, the rape scene, audiences' bad reactions to it, and the critics loving it, made David Lynch a mainstream name, and it netted him a second Oscar nomination for Best Director. After Blue Velvet, David Lynch turned to TV, working with the producer Mark Frost to create Twin Peaks. At the same time, he was working on Wild at Heart. After moving around the days from Thursday to Saturday night and granting a second season, ABC believed that the interest in Twin Peaks went down and canceled it. But Wild at Heart was a commercial success that allowed David Lynch to at least do Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. After several more years of trying to make a TV career work, David Lynch returned to filmmaking with tonight's film Lost Highway.
Where was it you think we met?
At your house, don't you remember?
No, I don't. Are you sure?
Of course. As a matter of fact, I'm there right now.
Along with Mulholland Drive, this is a direction that David Lynch is now known for, the non-linear, incredibly surrealist neo-noir film. Described by David Lynch as a psychogenic fugue and by critics as a Mobius strip, beginning with the phrase Dick Laurent is dead. It tells the story of an LA saxophone player, Fred Madison, played by Bill Pullman, and his wife Renee, played by Patricia Arquette, who begin to get strange VHS tapes delivered to their house that show them sleeping. We see flashes of things in Fred's mind and dreams, including Renee clearly cheating on him.
A dream last night. You were inside the house. You're calling my name.
A dream where a woman who resembles her gets attacked, and this mystery man who keeps appearing. The mystery man tells Fred he's in his house right now. The next day, Fred finds a tape where he's dismembered Renee and gets arrested for murder. On death row, in a jail where the guard is Henry Rollins, Fred is plagued by headaches and abruptly disappears. He's replaced by an auto mechanic named Pete, played by Balthazar Getty, who women can't resist, stuck in a cell, which leads the correction officers to freak out and eventually release him. He goes back to working on cars and laying pipe with his girlfriend Sheila, played by Natasha Gregson Wagner. He's then taken for a ride by Mr. Eddie, played by Robert Loggia, the world's most traffic-conscious mafia figure.
Tell him you won't tailgate.
I won't ever.
Do you know how many fucking car lengths it takes to stop a car at 35 miles an hour? 6 fucking car lengths! That's 106 fucking feet, mister! If I had to stop suddenly, you would have hit me!
Who wants him to work on his caddy, but makes the mistake of arriving with his girlfriend Alice, also played by Patricia Arquette. They begin an ill-fated affair and realize Mr. Eddie knows, and they must flee. At the moment of highest tension, Pete turns back into Fred Madison, who's running away from both the mystery man and the cops, and the Mobius loop is completed.
50 fucking thousand people were killed on the highway last year because of fucking assholes like you!
Before I introduce the panel, please like this video and subscribe to the Movie Night Extravaganza YouTube channel. Then hit that bell to get notified whenever we're streaming. Super chats are now open. If you have any pressing questions, send us a super chat, which helps me maintain the expenses for the show, which I am obligated by the rules of the Geneva Convention to stop everything and ask the panel. Another way to help us out is to become a patron and give us money every month. In exchange, you get access to all of our after parties, bonus content, and we'll tell you even more movies we watched recently. Patreon.com/Movie Night Extra. We have a Movie Night Extravaganza Discord. There's an invite link in the episode description, and we have a Letterboxd HQ account. So those are 2 more places to follow along with us. Okay, let me introduce the illustrious panel. Conan Neutron is the host of Protonic Reversal, co-host of Movie Night Extravaganza, and the frontman for the band Conan Neutron and the Secret Friends. You can check out his music and hopefully buy some at neutronfriends.bandcamp.com. Kristina Oakes is a co-host of Movie Night Extravaganza and a Twitch streamer. You can find her streaming at twitch.tv/cosmopolitics. All of her social media accounts are also at Cosmopolitics. She's on Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky, and even occasionally on Letterboxd. Katie Baldassaro is the co-host of Movie Night Extravaganza, a director, writer, and actress who wrote and co-directed Girl in the Basement, along with appearing in horror movies like The Purge Election Year and The Devil's Nightmare. You can catch her voice acting in the podcast series, The Starwell Foundation, and she is the host of What If I Don't Like It, and on TikTok at Movie Runtime. Marta hosts McFly's Movie House, which currently just finished its first season and is on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. She is a movie critic, a member of the Cascadia Film and Television Critics Association, worked the red carpet at Vancouver International Film Festival, and she's on Letterboxd and runs the popular Instagram account at Marta McFly. Rayyvana is a former contributor to TYT, is the co-host of the Taking the L podcast, and is a lawyer and Twitch partner, and our David Lynch correspondent, as she was on both our Blue Velvet and Mulholland Drive episodes. I, of course, am your host who would absolutely never break traffic laws or tailgate, Forrest Miller. Dick Laurent is dead. Congrats to Katie and Conan for becoming members of the Independent Film Critics of America.
Yes.
Yeah,
good.
you thought I forgot to add that. For the end of the thing.
I know,
I didn't want to cut anybody off. You know?
Congrats, guys, for that, by the way.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Marta, welcome back to the show. It's so great to have you.
Thank you.
Lost Highway. Rayyvana, our chief David Lynch correspondent.
Happy to be here.
You've been on every, well, I guess not when we did Dune, like in the very, very beginning.
Yeah, does that even count? I barely remember that episode.
But, yeah.
But 75 people on that, but Rayyvana was not one of them.
Yeah. There's 75 people on the Blue Velvet one, too.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
To be clear, we had this scheduled before David Lynch passed. And
yes. We had to clarify that. We were not responsible for the passing of the great David Lynch. Okay. We might have mentioned his name because we had this episode coming up, but it's not our fault.
Not that we wouldn't do it in memoriam, but we actually already had this planned.
I like the recurring bit, though, that like every name we get brought up, the person dies. It's like, please stop covering.
We're getting
anything to do
Who
with
else did this happen with?
The Queen.
I did it. I said the Queen was going to die.
Who's mad about that?
Yeah, exactly. But I'm trying to get the Elon Musk energy going too. You know,
there was someone else too. It's happened a few times.
Well,
the key is that you have to mention that you think they're old. You have to be like, oh, you seem old, and then.
Well, I made the joke that like comedians kept dying, and I made the joke. I was like, "You're next, Gilbert Gottfried," and then like a couple days later, Gilbert Gottfried died.
Yeah.
So that started the curse.
If it happens one more time, it's gonna stop being funny. But anyway,
yeah,
absolutely.
We're gonna only cover movies by people we hate.
Right.
Coming up next, Braveheart, Mel Gibson. He has a new movie. I saw a preview for it, and it goes out of the way to not mention that Mel Gibson like directed it.
Oh
wow, it's hilarious. It's like they're transporting like a mob dude in a plane, and
yeah. Well, he fucked up by going on Joe Rogan and telling everyone he directed it, and then mentioning that he doesn't believe evolution is real.
Fantastic. They went out of their way. They were like dislocating a shoulder, like running to like stop him from saying that, so that like people would not. Like, it's crazy. Like, but anyway, who cares about that guy? We're talking about one of the best to ever do it, Mr. David Lynch.
Yes, David Lynch.
Oh, here it is. Okay.
I was rewatching Blue Velvet, like literally, like the morning I found out that he had died. Like I was watching, because I was like getting real Lynchian, getting ready for this episode. Obviously I watched Lost Highway, but then I was like, I want to rewatch Blue Velvet, which I've rewatched like 4 times this week somehow. But
I get you on a list in some states, but anyway.
Yeah. But
it's already
so
on
I was
that list.
rewatching it just to like be I'm on that list specifically. I was rewatching, and then that was the morning that they were like, yeah, David Lynch, or like maybe it was like the next morning, like they were like, yeah, David Lynch passed away, and I was like, holy shit, because we had just talked about doing this episode too on the last episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Ray, was this a first watch for you? I know you've.
No, but I hadn't seen it in a while, so it was nice to give it a rewatch last night. And then it was really funny. I was like, let me watch a couple videos of people talking about the themes and trying to parse through what the meaning of the movie is. And one of the first comments under that video was the guy from the scene, the actor from the scene, from the tailgate scene, the tailgater.
Oh,
like,
nice.
I think that your analysis is pretty close, but none of us in the movie had any idea what was going on during the filming.
This is the one thing I tell people who want to get into David Lynch movies. I'm like, do not read anybody trying to analyze his movies or watch video essays trying to analyze. Just be in the moment. Just enjoy the movie and just not think too hard.
Yeah. There's a whole Reddit subgenre of people that go, I really want to get into David Lynch, but I'm like intimidated. What are good? So like, there's these descending lists. They're like,
the straight story.
You start out watching, Twin Peaks. That's like some of the most accessible, TV version of what he does, and then maybe like Blue Velvet, and then maybe you go through Dune, and then and there's like these descending lists, and they're all pretty similar for like a first time David Lynch watcher. Gotta send those to John
Was that
Ross.
the order that most of us did it in, or was this one of the first ones that people? This was one of the first ones that I saw, but it was because I was in a play that was loosely based on it. So
which is crazy.
Came in sideways.
I need to tell that story because it's crazy.
Yeah. So the director decided to use that and Murakami's work and just kind of literally cut lines out and glue them all together and pretended like he wrote it himself, which was really beautiful because the I'm in your house right now scene is like verbatim, and I'm like, expected us to not recognize this. And I'm playing twins for some reason. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. But the director did the same sort of thing. Stop asking questions, just do this, be in this weirdness. So but coming into it that way was a very weird way to access this. If I hadn't had the I already said all the lines before I saw the movie, it would have been completely different. And I'm curious how you guys experienced it.
So I can do this really quick. So started with Twin Peaks, went backwards to Dune, then Blue Velvet, then Eraserhead, and much later Wild at Heart, and then I watched Lost Highway and Mulholland Drive in the theater. So I already was on board at that point. But
my first one was Elephant Man.
I forgot. I always forget about Elephant Man.
You guys have that in school?
Not in Chid.
I like Forrest's story about it.
Yeah.
What was that, Marta? What'd you say?
Did you guys have that in school? Because here in Canada, we actually had to watch Elephant Man in high school.
I did, yeah.
That's enough to emigrate right there.
I just forgot John Hurt was him. I was like, wait.
I didn't realize it was John Hurt for so long. I was like, wow.
I was like,
that's cool. They got a disabled guy to do that. Oh, no, it's John Hurt. Oh,
yeah.
I found this out, or I got reminded about this morning. Like my mom was talking to me about David Lynch, and I got reminded that as a kid, I was in this really, really heavy, as kids are, Mel Brooks phase, where I was watching every Mel Brooks movie. Yeah. And so I went to the video store and I rented Elephant Man because it was produced by Mel Brooks, and I was like, because I had seen all the other Mel Brooks movies. I was like, well, I'll go to movies that he's produced, I guess. And I put it in the VCR.
I can't wait to have a laugh.
Yeah, and I was ready to laugh, and then and my mom was like, yeah, you were really upset. And I remember this now, really, really upset that I was like, this isn't funny at all. It's actually really sad.
Wasn't there some other movie that happened with you on? We did somewhat recently. I seem to recall.
Different story, but Starship
Brazil,
Trooper.
right? Starship was it?
Oh yeah. No, Brazil.
Apparently this happened a lot. You got duped a lot.
I was just constantly going to the video store and just grabbing stuff. And
you thought Brazil was going to be a Monty Python hijinks thing.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Awesome. But also, I rented Starship Troopers. We were talking about that when I was a kid, and then was just completely freaked out by the bugs.
Yeah, well, that's understandable. Marta, how about you? What was your order of, as a big Lynch head yourself, what was your order of viewing?
I started with Twin Peaks, and then while I was watching Twin Peaks, the whole Elephant Man thing happened. Not by choice, but I loved it. And then after Twin Peaks, I think I did Blue Velvet or Mulholland Drive. Those could be in reverse. Then Wild at Heart, then Lost Highway. Oh no, where did Dune go? Dune was somewhere near the start, I think.
It's another one's
like
easy
maybe,
to forget about.
Yeah, somewhere there. And then Inland Empire was lost.
Nice. Did people
and
like
Eraserhead was
Eraserhead,
also
yeah.
somewhere there. Yeah, I don't know.
But they're also different, right? Inland Empire, I watched like 10 years ago, and I was like, oh my God.
Inland Empire is the one that I've been too intimidated to watch because it's like 3
I think
hours.
Eraserhead's an easy watch compared to Inland Empire.
Yeah,
personally.
Yeah.
But I love Eraserhead.
I've stopped and started. I finally watched it all the way through to do this episode the other day, but I've stopped and started Eraserhead way too many times to like I was just like I can't. I don't know. I'm easily overstimulated, and that movie is incredibly overstimulating.
Eraserhead was the first Lynch movie I saw, and I saw it when I was 12 because I had a friend who, and he was the same age as me, but he just always had a wonderful taste in music and film from like birth, and now he's a playwright, so he was destined to do that. But I was over at his house, and he was like, "Have you ever seen this movie?" Of course, I hadn't seen that movie. I was 12.
Hey, 12-year-old, have you seen Eraserhead? No.
Jesus, get it together.
I think I was the Elephant Man when I was a lot younger too.
I saw
watched it again in high
Eraserhead.
school.
Now that I think about it, I did see Eraserhead fairly early on because I knew enough. The same place I got my glossy picture of Dale Cooper and Sheriff Truman, like the Twin Peaks one. I also got that Eraserhead glossy at the same time and got an Eraserhead official movie soundtrack T-shirt that is like a 90s medium, which is say an XXL that I have no idea where it is anymore. So I knew what that was and I knew the movie by then, but I definitely for sure saw Twin Peaks first.
Why were they all that size? My Cemetery Man shirt was also triple XL because that was the only size you could get.
Yeah, it's the only size that existed in the 90s.
In the 90s, you're like, sorry, there you go.
That's
like
the only one you need.
Heroin's cheek was all the rage. That's crazy.
You want a second size? Why?
Everybody's hoping. Everybody's hoping like Fat Joe will wear their shirt in like a rap video. Like,
no, it's Medium Joe now. He's lost a lot of weight.
Yeah, now,
exactly.
but I'm saying in the 90s, everyone was hoping that he was going to wear their shirt in a rap video.
See, that's why you never want to tie like a weight or a condition into your nickname.
To your name.
Yeah.
I've never seen Eraserhead because there are 2 movies I've promised my father I'll never watch. And one is Eraserhead and the other is The Third Godfather. And so I'm like, I promised I wouldn't do it. Eraserhead's the only movie he's ever walked out on.
Oh, wow.
He saw it at a theater in Greenwich Village because that was what he did when he was a kid.
Someone's gonna have The Third Godfather on, and you're gonna go. Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
You can miss the third Godfather
you can miss the
movie.
third Godfather.
You can never watch that
Or
and
bust.
live a perfectly full life. I think Eraserhead's fantastic.
It's like the dichotomy of those choices, though. Like one,
Yeah, that
okay,
is
the other,
pretty
like
wild.
really?
I think I fell asleep watching The Third Godfather. I was like, he's going. I was like, he's going legit. I'm bored about this.
Well, I'll tell you what. Last Highway, I saw this in the theater and it kicked ass.
Yeah,
but I knew what I was getting into, so that's probably worth mentioning. Like it wasn't a surprise to me. Yeah, and I was not surprised for how horny it was. Good Lord, this is jeez. I'd somehow forgotten some of that.
Coppola,
wow. Well, like, and I'd somehow forgotten the whole pornographer subplot, and like, there's all kinds of like
Marilyn Manson. Yeah, I forgot that too.
Marilyn Manson. I remembered, unfortunately. That's one thing I definitely mentioned. But okay, so one time I tried to mention Antonioni's influence in David Lynch to Michael Cheyenne, bad mistake. Of course, I got told silencio. Very good.
Yeah,
but I did see it in the theater, and like there were a lot of people that were just kind of like, what the, and like looking at each other and sort of just like looking at their feet, and like the reactions were like not like effusive at the time. Like I loved it. I was like, that was freaky as hell. I loved it.
When was this, Conan?
Oh God, when it came out. So 97?
Oh, when it came out.
97.
97.
Yeah.
It's gotta be
just out of high school.
It's gotta be a weird thing to watch in the theater. You know, like especially like right post Twin Peaks. Everyone's like, because like they're like, oh, this is the more like accessible side of David Lynch, and because his TV career didn't take off, he was like, oh no, I'm gonna get so much more inscrutable for the next,
Well, what's crazy is Twin Peaks at the time, it like made a huge cultural impact like that year, but then it kind of disappeared from culture. And it got brought back. Like it was something that like it came back and like then people were like, actually Twin Peaks is awesome. But there were a few years where people were like, oh, that show was a failure. Like, and if you knew, you knew, kind of like I saw the TV Glow style, right? But it was definitely, for me, it was the first time I could see a new David Lynch movie in the theater. I'm like, hell yes, I am there. Let's go. I'm ready. And I cannot overstate how much because like one of the biggest TV shows was like America's Funniest Home Videos. So people with camcorders and stuff were like everywhere. And so the fact that Robert Blake makes like, dude, when he's approaching the car with the camera and you're like, get out of there. It's like, he's got a camera. What's he going to do? But like, it has that nightmare logic, right? Of just like, you got to get out of there right now. Go start the car. But it's like, it's a camcorder.
I mean,
you could just touch you and death Robert Blake.
Yeah, I mean it's so terrifying, and Robert Blake is like so.
Yeah, he's gonna
a murderer.
He's gonna have your wife assassinated.
Well, you know what's funny? You know what inspired David Lynch to make this movie?
OJ
train.
Right?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. And so, like the first true crime thing that I remember was the Robert Blake thing, and I just always felt this guy looked creepy to me.
And I remember the timeline of it was after the movie came out.
Yeah,
like 2003.
Like a year.
Yeah,
or a few years after.
Was it a few years
after?
Out?
It was pretty close. Like I remember being shocked that it wasn't a large amount of time that passed. It was like he did this movie and then I don't know in a few years, or maybe I'm totally wrong, but that's how I remember it.
2002, and I know that because I was watching the Barbara Walters interview where she actually goes to the prison and interviews him in prison in 2003, and that was used as evidence at his trial that like assuaged some of the jurors to be like, maybe he didn't do it. I mean, Barbara Walters is there back when she was a trusted voice before started The View.
Oh right, I completely that is just blocked out of my memory.
Yeah, same. I guess we're not the demo. I don't know what to say.
Robert Wawa.
But along with sorry, go on, Katie.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, because what did we say? The OJ trial was an influence, but has it been confirmed that Edgar G. Ulmer movie Detour, like has Lynch ever gone out to say that that's also influence, or is it just something that we've all picked up on?
Yeah, good question. Because I recently watched Detour and loved it. The first thing I thought of was like, this is 1940s Lost Highway. Like,
absolutely.
Like this is it's crazy. The analogs are like actually kind of awesome. I was like really impressed with it. I don't know if he ever acknowledged that. I mean, he was always kind of inscrutable with that kind of stuff anyway, too, right? I mean, he never even said he was influenced by The Wizard of Oz. It's like, homie, Glinda shows up in Wild at Heart, like when Nick Cage gets his ass beat. We know you like Wizard of Oz, all right? Yeah. Come on. She's literally in the movie. But he never even like outwardly.
I don't think he confirmed it. I'm trying to.
He must have seen it. I mean, there's too many similarities to count.
It's right. It's his vibe.
Yeah,
for sure.
Totally.
For sure.
I think the casting choices were really good in this movie.
Oh,
yeah. And the concept of the characters being like twins or like parallels or whatever, that's the one thing that always stuck with me.
Because you see that one photo where you have both the Patricia Arquettes together, right? And that's like the only time it's even implied that they just aren't the same person. And then you get that whole I know you tagged Renee Ruin.
Patricia Arquette's also made my nose bleed.
yeah. Word.
Well, it feels like it's his point of view, so he's the one who needs to see two completely different sides of his wife. Like, this couldn't be part of the same person. It has to be a completely different person. His psyche is fuging out and trying to protect himself by creating this reality that feels so real because it needs to feel real. Which is almost like why it feels like a dream, because it is his psyche dreaming what it wants to see.
I have a clip that I pulled where David Lynch is talking about the psychogenic fugue.
Psychogenic fugue state,
and he's talking about how inspired.
Is it Breaking Bad where like
yes it is.
Where he goes into the fugue state and they find him in his undies.
But he does it on purpose, does he not? Yeah.
And he's naked in the supermarket.
He probably saw Lost Highway, and he was like,
I remember when I saw that, I definitely Leo memed at the TV. I'm like, oh, Lost Highway.
Lost Highway, probably considered the darkest, most incomprehensible memory element in your work. Do you see it as dark and incomprehensible?
I see it as there's this thing. I now, looking back, I see it as starting with the O.J. Simpson trial that I was kind of obsessed with. And it struck me how someone could do murders and then go on living with themselves. So that idea led to, my first, visits with Barry Gifford, and we were talking and kind of talking about things, and it just something clicked, and we started working on this, and in working on it found out there is a medical name for this thing, psychogenic fugue, where the mind tricks itself, and you can either take on another identity or you do what you have to do to hide those things from yourself.
Does duality play a lot in your work?
Well, yeah, duality, yeah. Yeah.
That's all you have to say.
Yeah.
I love the ending to that.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like, yeah.
No
course.
Shit.
Why are you asking this? Yeah.
You think you're talking to Michael Bay? Yeah.
Duality. It's like even funnier with like the guy being like having like that British accent where he's like, does duality play a lot in your work? Oh yes, it does.
Yes.
I love duality.
I love it.
But it is a really fascinating question to ask yourself, like, what would you do if you found out that you'd killed someone and you've created this whole wall and you just don't remember it? And then number 23 is a similar movie that asks the same question. And it's a little bit like a fear that I have that like maybe I have not, I forgot I hit somebody with my car or something. Like it's relatable.
There's the whole thing in the OJ trial, right? Where his whole thing that he created was like, there was another guy that came in and he actually said that he saw the other guy and was trying to stop the other guy. Right, that's why his blood was at the scene. But he tried to stop the other guy and the other guy killed her, like killed his ex-wife and ran off. And then he was like, yeah, this other guy, and they're not even trying to find the other guy. And like, obviously, I think that was bullshit. And he just had, like CTE based rage issues. But like, it is interesting. Like, what if he really did, in his mind, right, construct this thing where he's at the scene of the crime on the night, and then he constructs another person that that was there too, and it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, and there's a lot to parse there too. And the thing, it seemed that I found more humor in than I had found in the previous viewings is that like when he's in the jail, and they're like, oh, that's a different guy, and they're like, oh well, I guess we better let him go, because it's like, because it's so like they're all nonplussed about it. They're like, oh, that's spooky. Like
they do the perfect like David Lynch dialogue too, where they're like, something spooky is going on here.
Yeah. Oh, that's crazy. All right, better let him go.
I really do think the more I watch this, the easier it is to understand. Like with every rewatch, I'm like, oh, okay. Mm-hmm. I like my theory, and I'm okay with my theory.
Well, and there was not to scoot ahead too much, but I saw, here we go. Question for the panel. Do you think the very ending with the shaken head in the car is Fred Manson being executed?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think he's got the chair, right? I think that's
see the smoke. I mean,
But first time I saw that, I was like, whoa, that's crazy. Like, I wasn't even like thinking about that. I was like, that's nuts.
It's Jacob's Ladder shit.
I was like, looks like Jacob's Ladder. That's the best movie I've ever seen.
Oh my God, it does. Yeah. Now I'm excited.
But I think he is getting executed, and for whatever that means, which probably means that some aspect of the Balthazar Getty storyline is, the soul patch and all is maybe in his head or something.
Well, they have the line right in the East, the Far East, when a person they're sent to a place where they can't escape, never knowing when an executioner may step up behind them and fire a bullet into the back of their head, and then quite literally, he dies by. Pretty much, I mean, assumably by a bullet or executioner, but like in the actual thing, right? Like it's his head that gets completely.
And it's a mystery man that says that, who's hanging out with Robert Loggia. They're like,
yeah,
which is just so like somehow like both those guys being unnerving. It's more unnerving when they're hanging out together. Like what is happening right now? And he's like, Pete, you good? You doing good? Doing good, huh? Glad to hear you're doing good.
I love that he has the mystery man, threaten him, and then he's like, pass me the phone pretty much, and then he's like, Pete, it's so good, you're doing good.
It's not creepy at all.
There's something so like beyond unsettling about that every part of that conversation is like, this is terrible.
Yeah, it's
and
like,
the confusion doesn't help things any.
Gives you the ick, but you're also confused. It's like,
right, because you're like, is that dude even real? Like, what, they're hanging out? What's happening?
Right.
Like,
and then he's handing him the knife to slit his throat just like 10 minutes later.
Right, yeah. Which is something that I forgot about. And again, I've seen this movie. I can't stress this out. I've seen this movie 4 times. I was like, oh yeah, he gets his throat slit. And it didn't stick with me. There's so much other stuff that stuck with me. Like him coming to the car with the camera. I was like, oh, that I remember. Yeah. I remember that very well.
I feel like that's the OJ thing, right? Like the mystery man is like the dark thoughts that each character kind of has throughout this process. And it's like, as you go crazy and snap and decide to kill your wife and have all these thoughts, like, well, number one, like have these thoughts like your wife's cheating on you, like that guy's at the party where he's assumably at the party of the guy that he saw his wife leave with. I mean, who knows if that's even something that's happening or whether that's in his mind too, but like that, he's there at that party, he's there in the house where she's gonna get murdered. Like that's the voice that's telling you to do those things. So it makes sense that he's hanging out with Robert Loggia in the guy's mind, because he's like, oh well, that guy has those dark thoughts that are threatening me too. And you have to construct like this whole like this person was threatening to me and that's why I killed them. Like this whole defensive versus offensive thing in your mind where you're like, oh, I didn't just, set out to murder these people because I had my own things going on in my head and like, decided that my wife needs to die and the guy that I think that she treated with needs to die. And then his boss needs to die. Like it's actually that my life was actually the one that was threatened by these people.
Yeah.
A really good hint. You just mentioned that party where he first talks to the mystery man. Great hint there that it's all in his head, because when he starts talking to him, like it just goes quiet all around them. And then as soon as the man leaves, you can hear the party again. So if it's in his brain, it's obviously consuming him, I would say.
And how amazing is that scene too? Where it's like, I'm at your house right now. Call me. It's like, say what?
Call us. We'd love to hear from you.
The evil thing though when it comes to this movie. I said, like, the mind is a very feeble thing when it comes to this movie. Because you just don't. Sometimes you just feel like you don't know what's going on, but then sometimes you feel like you know, but then you don't know. It's Lynch is really good with that. There's always like a back and forth, and that's why I always tell people, don't overanalyze his work.
Yeah, you're right.
Don't do it. Just try to just be in the moment. Be entertained, because I mean that's what it all comes down to in the end. Is the point of a major point of film is just to be entertained, to enter a different world, to just get away from what's going on with your reality, and go into something completely different.
Boom!
He was very good at that too. That was like his whole thing.
Yeah, that's why I'm so appreciative of him.
Yeah. Me too. There's a quote from Lynch on Lynch I pulled to share with you guys. Have you guys read that book?
No, but I did get the audiobook this week because I was like, I need to remember to.
Does he read it?
I don't know. I hope so. But
I
didn't get a chance to listen to it yet. Great story. Anyway, tell them what's going on.
It's super quick, but I find it really fascinating because, as we know, Lynch never cared. Most of the time, he never cared to share what his movies were about. But here's something that's like very obvious from Lynch on Lynch about Lost Highway. He said, I guess it's fair to say that it's really about a man who finds himself in a dire situation and has a kind of a panic attack. He has a very difficult time dealing with the consequences of his actions, and this fractures him in some way. It's a very realistic, very straightforward case study of one person who is at a loss to deal with the way things have worked out. So... I think that supports what we're saying totally, because it's coming from his words himself.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's someone that I know who I like a lot that refers to Lynch as someone who makes puzzle box movies. And I'm like, I don't know if I agree with that, because I feel like if you a puzzle box movie, like, you feel unsatisfied if you don't solve the puzzle. And I've never felt that way. I took like 4 times in Mulholland Drive where I like even had an inkling of what was going on. I was like, that's great, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, you know what's interesting? Katie, go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
So one thing with this movie, obviously, Siskel and Ebert gave a negative review. And so obviously Lynch issued a new poster calling for the thumbs down verdict. 2 more reasons to see Lost Highway.
They actually
Siskel said, I found that petty.
Oh, wow.
Petty.
But in the letterbox, you can change the custom posters. One of the custom posters is that, which is
I love that.
Oh, wow.
Fantastic.
Nice. I would say that this does remind me of DID, dissociative identity disorder, where you can be triggered into switching into another, kind of more of a version of yourself, not like all of a sudden you're a 12-year-old girl where you used to be a 45-year-old man, but like something more similar. So we can see this like saxophone player becomes an auto mechanic, and I think that is, we're talking about great casting. And so the first time I watched this movie, I was wondering, why would they switch the casting on the lead character but not Patricia Arquette? And I was wondering how you guys felt about that choice.
Well, from my perspective, he's sort of, he's like, feels very inadequate, right? He's got like Fred Madison. He can't satisfy his wife. We learn very early in the movie. He feels very self-conscious about that. Their relationship, to whatever extent that's real. My opinion is that he's already been arrested by the beginning of the movie, but anyway, but clearly it's not a happy communicative relationship. And so he's trying to create this world where he's got like everything, right? He's got a family that seemingly supports him in Gary Busey.
Gary Busey, normal, awesome dad, Gary Busey in Lost Highway.
Yeah.
What?
This is the actor with the motorcycle accident too, by the way.
Yeah. Anyway, please continue, Rayyvana.
But yeah, he's got all these friends who come over to check on him, and he's got this really beautiful girl next door girlfriend, but he also is a very conceited individual who thinks he deserves like a perfect life, and even more than this. So even in this fantasy world he's created, he can't be satisfied with that. So he needs this beautiful seductress woman to be attracted to him as well. And as Forrest pointed out in the intro, he's laying mad pipe, but still that's not satisfying enough for him. And because he can never truly be satisfied, that's, I feel like, where we get to the scene where she says, "You'll never have me." He transforms back into Fred, and this fantasy starts to dissolve around him, and he's forced to look at himself through the camcorder that he says at the beginning he hates to do, because then he has to remember events as they actually were and not as how he wants to remember them. That was just my opinion on.
No, I love that.
I agree.
I think that's great. I think you're dead on. If they're, as much as anybody can be dead on. 2 things real quick. First of all, Natasha Gregson Wagner, who played the girlfriend character Sheila, daughter of Natalie Wood.
Natalie Wood.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
which is a lot of people.
Crazy.
I actually either didn't know that or I forgot it. And it's the same, right? And
once
also,
you know, you can see it. You can see it in her face.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And then just as for the that you'll never have me. That's got to be one of the hardest lines, like Olive Noir or Neo Noir or whatever. It's like.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Well, she like kisses it almost too.
Yeah.
It's also so fucking hot.
That too.
There's great trivia about shooting that scene where Patricia Arquette says that she's actually incredibly modest and shy about her body. And in that scene, she was like, I'm going to fully embody this character that is so hot and so fucking slamming. Yeah. And she said she took off her clothes, turned around and said, if you're on this set when I turn around and you don't fucking need to be here, I will come over and punch you in the face. And then she took off her clothes. And then she heard 40 people like scatter.
Nice.
I love that.
That's awesome.
She also said that
good for her.
I was watching that Pretty as a Picture documentary that they made at the same time as filming it, and she was saying that David Lynch would when she was doing scenes where she had to be like sexual or like, you know, immodest or whatever, she would there would be these fuck, is my internet out again?
No, you're good.
You're here.
I know. Oh, I guess it is
not
back.
here.
Well,
Oh, yeah. Poor Forrest.
He was in fact not okay.
It was in fact not okay. Yeah, but I think that she's a badass in this. I mean, I'm a huge Patricia Arquette fan. By the way, like she's great in Severance for Severance fans like Katie and myself. Like we're like I can't wait till she shows up in the second season.
Could be a sister to this story. This kind of like existence, this duality of your own existence, where there's this other person that doesn't even talk to you, that has a life that's similar to yours, and maybe loves that are similar to yours. Yeah. If you like that, definitely check out Severance.
Yeah, and I just find her to be a very interesting actress, and like there is like such nuance to her performance in this too, in the way that you're almost kind of led to be like, oh, maybe it's on the face of it. Oh no, she's playing you, dude. Like she's playing you in that way that it almost seems like a little bit like this feels like a noir. Yeah. Big time now. Yeah. It's like, oh, wait, that's because this is in your head. Okay, I get it.
On your head, Sonny.
But there's some incredible, and I just talk about low-grade horrific, like Mystery Man. I swear, because I saw this in the theater, the glass table. Yes. I started moving around glass tables differently my entire life after seeing that scene. Like, I'm like, don't run around it. Don't run around it. No way.
She is so excellent in that scene when he says, "We killed him," and she looks at him with like disgust and says, "You killed him."
My
second
jaw is
hardest
on the
noir line
floor.
in this.
First
Own that.
And I feel like that scene has been stolen a couple times by other things as well, but it was in Lost Highway first, and it made me think about glass tables differently my entire life.
There's a whole Spanish horror film called Coffee Table that just came out this year. That is a glass coffee table decapitating a small child, and then the husband having to deal with that while his wife was out. And it is,
oh my god,
they're making a sequel. Wow.
It's gonna be a franchise.
It's a franchise.
Put the table on a boat.
Yeah, I had a coffee table growing up that had rosettes all over, and it was really sharp. And I grew up just like you, Conan. Like, don't go near it. Get away.
Yeah, don't go near it. Don't run around it. But I think it's worth noting how many just unsettling and deeply affecting scenes that are in this. That, like, maybe you can't even articulate why they hit the way they do, but that's like that David Lynch thing. He's so good at just that collective unconsciousness. Like he's big in transcendental meditation, right? Mm-hmm. Catching the big fish, all that. Yeah, it's so effective. And there's things that I forgot. I was like, oh yeah, that's in this movie because it's almost
Pryor.
Richard Pryor, one of his last movies,
his final film role, indeed.
Yeah,
like that's like I forget when I was rewatching it, I was like, oh yeah, Richard Pryor.
Jack Nance too. He also works at the Garage. It's his last role also. So it's cool to see like some of his world unfold in that way and have it be off something that happened, that was a real life thing. Someone going to the buzzer and saying Dick Laurent is dead. And he's like, that's a great idea for a movie, and of course it is. That's fantastic. That's a fantastic hook, right? I mean, it's sort of like, well, who's Dick Laurent? What are we even talking about? And I love that Robert Loggia's character, Mr. Eddie, is David Lynch's idea of a gangster.
Yes. It's incredible.
It's so good because he is menacing, but it's also like, well, he's got a point about the traffic stuff, though. Really, you do indeed have to hand it to him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, do you know how he got hired? Were we chatting about this earlier? Maybe
we have not mentioned this on air. We were talking about it. Yeah, Marta, why don't you inform the?
Oh gosh, let me see if I can remember this. So he apparently wanted the role of Frank Booth in Blue Velvet. That's what it was, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So he came to test for the role, but Lynch was super busy and he ran out of time, and they went to go tell him you're not needed. And so he apparently went bonkers, came over to Lynch and started screaming at him. And so Lynch remembered that outburst. And that's why he was like, you'd make the perfect Mr. Eddie.
And there's some great scenes where he's like, it's just, I felt bad, I bombed it, like it's like, hey, he's never gonna hire me now. And then like later on, it's like he's perfect for that role. So it's like, of course he would. That's amazing.
And one thing too with Robert Blake's character, like Robert Blake believed he was playing the devil, literally, and he did not want to, be finicky or poke about the script with David Lynch. He was like, I'm just gonna do my part, and I think this character is the devil, so I'm gonna do it. And also, that was his last film role as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, we got Forrest back.
Welcome back, Forrest.
Okay. Hey, Forrest.
Hey,
there's that point you were making.
Yeah.
So
yes, they So every time they were gonna do one of those scenes where she had to get sexual or where she had to do anything that she wasn't comfortable with, she said that David Lynch would pull the male co-stars away and be like, "Hey, I need to talk to you," and they'd come back and they'd look at her entirely differently because she didn't know what David Lynch said to her male co-stars, but every single time he'd pull them off the set and give them a talking to.
Feminist icon.
Yeah.
Well, that's why he's one of the greatest, right? Because of that kind of thing. I mean, think about what he did in Mulholland Drive,
right?
When people were just going for the titillation, and he's like, "All right, well, you're not going to see it now. How about that?"
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Great. As much as personally, like, oh, really? But
that Twin Peaks clip was behind the scenes clip was going viral when he had Naomi Watts on for that one, like whatever her appearance.
She was like in the middle of an interview or something, right?
Well, no, she was talking to him and he's like trying to give her direction and he's like, punch me in the face as hard as you can. And she's like, I don't want to do that. And he's like, come on, just punch me in the face. And then Kyle MacLachlan behind her goes, I'll do it.
Kyle will do it. They were like this.
Fantastic.
But also just the way he went about that too. I think he like pulled her in for a hug and said like, "Oh, sweetheart, you don't have to." Like it was that small exchange in that moment that just made my heart so full.
Well, considering that he gets knocked on for having women in distress in so many of his movies and TV shows and this and that, and there's definitely a feminist reading that is not very kind to him over the creations. I think those kind of moments are all the more important because of it. Mm-hmm. Because it's about the story, it's about the vision, it's about the dream, right? It's not about like, the meanness of, I don't know, like a Zack Snyder or something where it's like, all right.
That's something I want to point out too about the perspective of him, right? Like there's now this argument that James Gunn doesn't know how to write women properly, that they're not strong characters and they're sexualized. And I'm like, what planet do you live on? Right? So it's like, was David Lynch like one of the first directors to get called out allegedly for like not writing female characters in a way that reflected on what the times were going with? But I disagree with the perspective that he doesn't know how to write women. I think he's writing very more complex, nuanced female characters who do have a strength within them.
And that's been all the way through. Like, look at Blue Velvet, right? Which Ebert definitely hammered him on for being sounded like he had a crush on Isabella Rossellini, frankly. But then again, who wouldn't?
I mean, they dated for a while, so that's,
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
For a number of years,
But I think that
he gave her this adorable little thing. It was a bee board, and it was just little tiny bees that he had given names to, like Josh and James and Paul, and he like pinned them on the board for her. They were a perfect level of weird.
Good I was gonna say they were they're find someone that matches your freak, right?
She said like she's still in love with David Lynch, or like she's like she was like, goodbye, I love you, or whatever, when like he finally he passed away, and she's been on her press tour. She's back everywhere now.
Yeah, from Conclave.
I was gonna say she's
she is the woman in Conclave.
Yes, the one.
Yeah,
the one.
I think that these scenes
technically like three, but there's really only one role.
Yeah,
are not quite like so. I think whenever there's a scene like this that we're talking about that's uncomfortable and over sexualized, there's the wish fulfillment where it seems like the director has put the actress in the scene because it's salacious and it's going to do well with audiences, or they themselves want to see this. And that's never quite what Lynch does. I still feel like Lynch is trying to make the audience look at a dream version of themselves where they would confront perhaps these images as opposed to confronting why you're dreaming these images, simply confronting the need to see these images.
That's a very good
Yeah,
point.
perfectly put.
Getting back to the house for a second, because I have this to drop that on tour in September, I actually drove right up to the David Lynch house, aka the Lost Highway house, where I indeed did not ring the doorbell and say Dick Laurent is dead. But I took this picture that I sent to one Marta McFly, like, hey, guess where I'm at? She's
I screamed at you, remember?
She guessed like immediately.
Like immediately.
David Lynch was living in that house, right?
This is his actual house. And here's what I'll tell you about that block. Not to dox the man who's the RIP, but like you can tell. You're like, which one of these is David Lynch's house? You're like,
yeah.
It's that one.
That's literally what houses will look in The Sims for. Like, I can't build for shit. Like, look like that. Like, I can't do it.
Kristina,
but I wanted to share that because it is a real place. It is a real place, and his actual house where he like had somebody ring that doorbell, maybe like some crazy fan, probably a crazy fan. Let's not get it twisted.
Okay,
but, like,
excuse me, Conan. How dare you insult me?
I don't think the temptation wasn't there. I didn't have anything else to do. I was like, got an hour to kill.
Where I don't know. I mean, obviously, he probably would never say, but Bill Pullman lives somewhere in that neighborhood, and that was the whole thing that he. Katie was telling us in the chat that he actually went over there to hang out, and then David Lynch had the script and was like, "Yeah,
you want this? Come get it."
Well, it's because Pullman is such like. Sorry, I was watching it. The very first thing I said was, "Why isn't this Kyle MacLachlan?" Because they even make him look like Kyle MacLachlan with the black hair. And then he's there.
You're right.
But because it's like, I saw him and I went, "Oh, because he's male Meg Ryan." Like, he's so next door. Where MacLachlan is still like, okay, maybe he did kill his wife, but Bill Pullman didn't kill his wife.
Right.
Yeah.
This is like a dude. It's just a dude.
Really?
Some guy.
I see Kyle MacLachlan that way too. He's like an angel to me. But
definitely young Kyle MacLachlan for sure.
Yeah. Is baby girl.
Yeah, that's right.
He instead of having VCR tapes, they keep sending him TikToks of his house.
I'm not gonna say instead of Baby Girl the movie, we swap out Nicole Kidman with Kyle MacLachlan.
Yeah. I feel like I've seen that joke.
I love that.
I feel like we're not the first to come up with that.
Probably. That's fine.
We're not copying jokes. We're just coming up with them. So if anyone has any cover
We just-
over these jokes, don't sue us.
We just run through a lot of material and we don't care.
Imagine getting sued over memes. They're like, "Hey, my memes. We're taking these memes to court."
Fill
If
my
that's true, SNL will
pockets
be
full of
under
rocks
right
and
now.
walking to the lake.
Don't worry, I can be your intellectual property meme lawyer.
That's right.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yes, another hat.
Our panel today. Ha.
Love it.
This is my meme lawyer. No, she's a real lawyer. I'm just saying,
But I do love the idea of just like the unsettling factor of like, yeah, somebody rings your doorbell and says like something ominous, and you're like, what? Like, and then you start getting videotapes, and I can't stress this enough because like for a younger audience that have phones, Sean Baker can make movies with what's in your pocket and then some. Like the idea of having like, oh, this is like a home video that you did not take, that's of your home. This is in your house. Like there's something so, first of all, very fitting with VHS because of like the degradation, but like also there was something in the air around that time about like the beginning of what people thought like a surveillance state would look like and this and that. And there was a sexualized and videotape of all of it, et cetera, et cetera. But this hit, it's funny because it's using the camcorder as a weapon more than anything else I've seen that wasn't the camcorder being an actual weapon. And you don't even see the actual filming, which is the David Lynch of it all. And I think that's so
Because you've been violated without even being there for the violation. You weren't conscious for it. It's so absurd. And this is like a liminal space subject of Reddit, where there are TikTokers who will be freaking out because they'll show you the background of their bedroom and it's the exact same background of someone else's bedroom. And they're like, how did we set it up exactly the same? Why is it the same color? Why did you get your sheets from Target too? Like, how are you taping in my bedroom while I'm asleep?
Yeah.
Well, like,
are we the same person? What's happening? Am I in an electric chair right now?
I kind of connected with that part of the storyline because of the fact I'm a victim of voyeurism. One of my male customers that was house sitting for filmed me without my consent and other children on his other property. So you feel like that violation where you don't know you're being watched, you don't know, what people will do with such material, So I was like, oh, damn.
Well, and that's why I think the porno storyline really works here too, because it's another form. Like, number one, I mean, it is the most visceral style of voyeurism, right? Like, you're literally videotaping people fucking, and like, obviously the porno that they're doing in this movie, I mean, that involves Marilyn Manson and his bandmate.
A little too on the nose for recent years.
But like literally,
film, right?
It's number one, one of them is a snuff film. The other one is literally from the side like this, and she's getting fucked doggy style, and it's her face up to the camera, and it's
which is being projected on the wall in the
Yeah.
later scene, which is making art out of something ostensibly artless. While a different dynamic plays out in front, which is just the worlds within worlds.
But it's
within
the
worlds
most
of the
but
world.
It's another form of this relentless violation of intimacy. I mean, they obviously they know that they're being filmed when they're doing porn, and that's what he's imagining in his mind, like, oh, because he's really working himself up to give a reason why he killed his wife. Like, well, she was a porn actress and this guy's her pimp, and then the other guy, and then there's a snuff film involved, and I'm really doing a service by kind of Taxi Driver style killing these criminals. But like there's the that violation of intimacy that you see there, because it's the most visceral form of that when she's getting fucked against thing, and then the snuff film part of it, and then obviously he makes his own snuff film when he murders his wife, and then doesn't remember it.
That was a different guy.
Yeah.
I'm going home to my dad, Gary Busey.
I was
normal dad.
I was actually trying to stop him from murdering my wife.
It wasn't me.
Also too, with like DID, you in a weird way, a lot of TV shows and film in the past have portrayed DID as like something that's so extreme, but it's not really. It's a simple thing. You could go from one personality to the next like that, and it's so interesting that David Lynch actually does a pretty good job of portraying what DID could possibly be like.
Yeah. Well, and there's the compartmentalization style of that, right? Like, it's not as like if you have like a dissociative and identity disorder or something, like there's different versions of it. There's there's one of it brought about by trauma, where your brain is trying to compartmentalize trauma that's happened to you. There's also trauma that you've inflicted on somebody else, and your brain trying to compartmentalize. How did I turn into such a psychopath that I did this murder? And like, that totally wasn't me. That's not how I see myself. So it's your ego coming into conflict with, the incredible brutality that the human spirit is capable of.
Yeah.
Not saying incredible in a positive way, but
he's a big fan of it.
Yeah, huge fan. Ray, did you have a point you wanted to jump in on?
Oh, I mean, it was slightly unrelated, but just the mention of Gary Busey, I feel like I have to mention how funny David Lynch is and how excellent, like, the pacing of a scene can just make it so comical. When Gary Busey and his wife come to collect him from the jail, and they're both wearing leather jackets, and the scene lasts forever. There's no lines spoken at all. They just walk in very slowly across the room, collect their son, walk out. You see them all walk into the house, and suddenly all three of them are wearing leather jackets. All of his friends that come into the house are wearing leather jackets. It's so fucking, for a movie that's very
Are we in a cult?
gratuitously sexual and in some cases violent. It's also between that, the scene where he's yelling about tailgating. I mean, it's just so fucking funny.
Absolutely.
It's so Lynch too.
It's funny moments.
Well, and he's definitely, and there's repeated themes of that in other in other movies as well. I mean, look at like Wally Brando and Twin Peaks: The Return, right?
Yeah,
so it's like he loves that image, like the sort of rebel without a cause, like motorcycle rider.
You're tearing me apart.
But it's something. Yeah, it is. You're right. It's very funny in a movie that there's not a lot of huge laughs. Although I've consistently laugh through the traffic scene because that's amazing.
Yep. Yep.
There's a I mean, I don't know how meta he gets in his own mind with his the way that he's doing these, like putting stuff into movies, right? Because a lot of times, and I wanted to say this earlier with something Kristina was saying, like he kind of just throws stuff in there to throw you off, from ever coming up with a coherent narrative, and or like to distract you from what you thought was going to be.
Do you think it's a distraction? I think he just puts it because he likes it, and like.
But like there's details in this movie, right, that like only make sense if it's David Lynch trying to throw you off from being able to create coherence out of this surrealism. But like I think that one meta thing that I think is interesting with those like those style images, right? When he made Eraserhead, and he was on AFI, the big movie that AFI had made at that time was Easy Rider, and he actually couldn't get any funding for Eraserhead at the time because they had blown, or they had a certain small budget for Easy Rider, and after that they were like, well, we can make movies for this much money, so we're only going to give away like the $10,000, right? Like, right. So the beginning of his career was completely overshadowed by Easy Rider.
That's interesting. So that probably looms large for him in a way that some of the real just like golly gee whiz apple pie like Americana films.
But I also think it came to the point where he just didn't give a fuck, like Siskel and Ebert, like the negative reviews. He's like, whatever, he always comes up with the best like comeback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, he weathered Dune. I think that gave him
right.
Tough.
He had the perfect cop out where he's like, "Oh, that's not my vision. My vision was going to be way better." And it's like,
It's not bad. It's not that bad. Like
it's what I'm saying.
It's just a pass though. Like that's what I was like. Damn, Sting was in this.
Yeah, it's got cool costumes. It's got the hanging, floating aliens, which aren't in the new one.
Sting and Austin Butler are the same character. Yeah, no, I mean, like. Is it his best movie? No. I mean, like, look, we did that poll of what the best David Lynch
story,
movie is.
and we all know it.
And some chaos entity actually did vote for Dune, so respect. But it's good. Like, it's weird, but it's good. Like, it's the fact to be like, oh, it's terrible. I'm like, is it though? Like, they're trying to fit 2 books of story into like a short. Like again, like how long is? I don't feel like it even clears 2 hours. Like, or if it does,
well, that's the issue. If you watch it, for me personally, the first half is perfectly paced and true to the story, and then you get to the second half, and all of a sudden it's bam, 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 and that's because they wouldn't give him more time. I really do think that if he had more time, if he had a bigger budget, Dune would have been better.
I agree.
Well, and if you had his own, I mean, it is true that like it matters a lot whether you get final cut on your film.
Mm-hmm.
And, like,
that's
that a lot of indie directors especially learn. They're like, look, I could take less money or take weirder funding sources if that meant that I could have final cut. Like the final cut is really what makes the movie. I completely forgot that Brad Dourif, who is in both Blue Velvet and Dune, is also Wormtongue in Lord
of the Rings. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, and the doc.
Isn't he also the voice of Chucky?
Yes.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he is. Yep.
Yeah.
He's a
Deadwood. He's in the. He's the
Deadwood.
But I feel like maybe Dune had to kind of flop in order for David Lynch to realize like what type of vision he wants for all feature films. Like,
what if it had been a hit? What if it got stuck to a franchise?
We wouldn't have
Dune
or this Lost Highway.
The 80s would have looked very different, my friend. That's
that's literally the thing, because he had a 3 movie contract, right? And it was going to be multiple iterations of Dune, and then something that he wanted to do. Like that was the other side of that contract. And because Dune flopped, the producers were like, you know what, you don't have to do the second Dune. Nobody wanted to see the first one, and then Blue Velvet came out of that. Like that was the third film in his contract.
Yep.
Well, that's what led to the David Lynch that we know of today, right? I mean,
Dino De Laurentiis, by the way, is the producer that I was trying to think of.
Because if you'll remember, and if you have every right not to remember it, when we covered that very early on, that Dune, I kept referring to it as the Dino De Laurentiis Dune.
As you should.
The Blue Velvet episode for Conan. The first time I met Conan.
That's right.
Trying to spell Danica Kasparian. That was I was like, oh god. And Rayyvana was there too.
I was there. I was present. But I like Blue Velvet, so I wasn't catching Conan's ire.
Yeah, my God. I was like,
I like how explaining that almost sounds like a dream. And Rayyvana was there too, and Conan popped up.
You were there?
and it was all a dream, or we were in the Black Lodge, or maybe that never happened.
Yeah, I pretend it didn't happen now, knowing what we don't know about a certain person on that panel. So,
speaking of certain people, Marilyn Manson's a trash human being who should be lost to history. But the usage of "I put a spell on you" in this movie is awesome.
I hate how much I love it. I really do.
It's so perfect, and it's like God damn it! I hate that it's that dude, but but it's so good.
This whole soundtrack,
yeah.
Because
it's got David Bowie when he was doing the tour with Trent Reznor and Nine Inch Nails, and he was in that was it Outsider, whatever it was, period.
Yeah,
it's somehow very 90s, and also just very David Lynch.
Yeah.
You get that cover of Magic Moment by Lou Reed, where you're like, what is this? I know this.
Which I also think is used on purpose. Sorry, go on, Forrest.
No, go ahead, Marta. I was just gonna say that scene blows me away.
Yeah, yes. I was gonna say I think that's another clue. Actually, the fact that song is a cover, that he's dreaming in the movie.
Because it's familiar, but it's a little different.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
There's so many subtle tweaks in the movie where things are not as they seem, and I think that's another one because it's a cover.
I love that.
Yeah. Sometimes, hey, see, Conan. Sometimes the slow down covers or whatever are just as good as the original.
The darker, grittier cover.
I know you hate when they do that. I know you hate when they slow down a song.
You know goddamn well what I'm talking about when I say I hate that stuff.
I know. We're talking about Crazy in Love being slowed down, the Beyonce and Jay-Z song for 50 Shades of Grey trailers. I know what you mean.
We're just
specifically that one. No.
And I liked it maybe the first 50 times I saw it, but now it's like, Jesus H. Christ, enough. Can we hear something at the regular speed, please? Thank you.
By the way, I like Marta, I think you're definitely on point with that. Also just putting Marilyn Manson into it, putting Henry Rollins, it does feel like these
Henry Rollins, the security guard. You're right. Yeah.
Yes.
These figures are very, very, very well known at the time, right? Literally these 90s rock stars. That also makes it feel like he's in this surreal dream, because these are figures that we're gonna remember. I mean, as much as it kind of sucks that we're gonna remember Marilyn Manson, these are still these ubiquitous pop culture figures that kind of would just be in your dream to be in there. And it's they're unnamed. They're just kind of in there. Henry Rollins as the security guard is one of the funnier ones in this.
It's so funny how many times he's been a security guard or a cop, considering how many songs about cops, and not that they were great. Black Flag did.
Wasn't he in Heat as well?
He was in Heat. Yes.
Yeah, he's doing these bit parts. So yeah.
Absolutely.
I think it's interesting, before we move too far away from the Dune thing.
Johnny Mnemonic, Stevie says in the comments. I forgot all about Johnny
Mnemonic.
Yeah.
Dick Laurent sounds that name almost sounds kind of like Dino De Laurentiis in a way, right?
Okay. And the
onomatopoeia of it. It's also, it got pointed out in on Facebook that DL is also David Lynch.
Oh. I can't believe
a meta reading. Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't even think of that.
All right.
So I don't know. I think it was Matt Gilbert or whatever.
Rayyvana gets more pussy than a toilet seat.
Excuse me. Well, they're not. Oh,
a line reading I forgot was in this movie. I'm like, oh wow,
hilarious, hilarious.
I mean, that is so wish fulfillment, right? You hope that not only do you get a lot of pussy, but you hope that the cops that are
the guys that are staking out the location make note of it.
Wow, this guy fucks, and they're in the car talking about it.
Yeah.
You're right.
What a job we have to watch this guy have sex with women in the car.
It is. Yeah, it is almost cartoonish that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess it was. I think it was Matt Davenport, I guess, on Facebook was telling me about a reading of the movie where the DL character, right, is David Lynch. Kind of, he's doing a commentary on the fact that that people like Siskel and Ebert kind of find his films to be kind of tawdry and almost pornographic, of people complaining about his films being pornographic. And so that character being this over the top kind of crazy porno producer or whatever, is almost a commentary on the way that he is perceived by his critics.
Yeah.
I have read about that or heard it somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that carries through to Mulholland Drive too, right? Like, look at the, you know, that. I mean, we covered that in over 2 hours in depth of that.
Yeah.
Yes. But I think that was like where it was coming from at that time too. So it makes sense to have that be relevant.
I do wonder about this movie and Mulholland Drive having a very similar, similar, but like kind of have a similar vibe, right? Like kind of a similar plot devices of someone who's killed someone and they, in their own mind, they're trying to, compartmentalize and cover for that fact.
I was wondering that too, because I was wondering about bringing that up too, because it's almost like they're both like companions.
Well, they're part of a unofficial trilogy, right? The
Within London Empire.
Yeah.
But it definitely feels like it's interesting that this is like, this is the white OJ pretty much is who Bill Pullman's playing. and then the next movie. The next movie is obviously like female led, and it's like the female version of something like that. Where I mean,
because you got Betty and Diane is like they're the dark and the light, but it's like, well, which one is actually real, right? Yeah. And again, over 2 hours on that we covered about a year and a half ago. So just
I think it's an anagram. Sorry, just to go back to guys. I'm sorry, you were saying Dick Laurent is dead, and so I'm trying to crunch anagrams out of that. And what about a lunatic's dire deeds?
What? Is that?
It could be a backronym. I could be finding something that he didn't put in there, but it does say that.
No, Lynch would probably be like, yes.
I feel like Forrest is about to ask you to zoom and enhance. Jesus.
Like I will not be commenting on that, but I totally did that on purpose.
Typical Lynch.
Rayyvana, Marta, I like both your opinions on the cabin at the end. Ray, why don't you go first? Then Marta, you go. The reverse exploding cabin, that whole thing. What do you think that's all about?
Oh crap! Don't make me go first. I haven't thought about it that much.
Okay, Marta, you go first, and then Ray can.
What do you mean? Like just
how it fits in the story, the visual aesthetic, everything about it. I mean, I got thoughts, but
I got thoughts too. Hold on, I wrote them down, and now I can't find them.
Can I just say, Sex in the Sand, not advisable. Not advisable ever.
Oh, gross! Yeah,
I think we can all get on board with that. It may look cool, don't feel very good.
So, cabin, beach cabin.
That was me filibustering while you looked it up. Yeah.
And you know what? You did a beautiful job. So I would say, I remember now. So I think that it functions kind of similar to the Black Lodge in Twin Peaks. Conan, I know you listen to my podcast episodes. You probably know where I'm going with this. But it's like another realm, right? And visually, when we see the inside of that cabin, it looks a lot like the or not a lot, but it looks like the Black Lodge because you have, like, visually, you have the shack itself, and it kind of opens up like curtains at one point. I think that's near the start when we first see it. Like the camera itself opens it up like that. And then inside the shack, the way it's set up with the couch and the chair is similar to the waiting room in the Black Lodge, which then makes me think that, again, it's not reality. It's not real. It's from another dimension. Same with the Mystery Man. That's kind of all I have to say about that. I don't know what else I could add. What were you thinking?
I think there's a lot of shacks into the desert. Don't get me wrong, but that one seems a little got a little extra
weird
going on, right? And the fact that you get the reverse explosion on it too is like, okay, so that's something's funky with this.
It can't be real
with this funky little shack that is not, in fact, the love shack talked about in the B-52 song.
Funky little shack.
It definitely like pulls imagery from Twin Peaks, and then Twin Peaks: The Return with the explosion, and then the houses, then that little town surrounding where they were doing those experiments blowing up. But it also kind of reminds me of the cabin in the woods where they were in Twin Peaks, where they're filming porn of Laura and what's the
Burnett Pulaski.
And it's gross because it's gross in Twin Peaks. This little shed is gross. I mean,
they are in real life too, so that's very accurate. Yeah,
well, because it's the love shack, it's just
it's the love shack's falling on hard times.
Yeah.
But I think it's like it's importance in the story too of just like where it is at the time, and again the reckoning with, you know, where she takes the full femme fatale turn. You know, you'll never have me in that, and the lighting. I mean, the car light thing. That's a classic. Good shadow play, David Lynch thing. But I think it's all meant to sort of tell you, okay, so he's coming to a certain part of his own internal reckoning, and there's a certain amount of reality that is not expected or wanted from his side, but it is approaching like a train at him. And then the one part that's kind of weird is that it's like, okay, and then Mystery Man's there, like helping him, you know, slice Stickler's throat, and to which he then asks, "What do you want?" after they've sliced his throat,
right?
Which is hilarious to me.
Holding it.
Yeah, it was like, well, like probably want to kill you, man. I mean,
right.
Yeah, and he's like the blood is coming out of his neck, and he's like, "All right, what do you guys want?
Yeah, what do you want, dude?" Yeah.
Yeah, and it's almost going back to the DID thing again. There's like a liminal space that is described in a lot of disassociative stories where all the identities can go together to talk to each other, and that kind of could be the cabin as well.
Right, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, not. I mean, I think I have a theory about the cabin too, but just the scene where I have a theory about like an overarching thing that involves the cabin, but just the scene where he actually slits Dick Laurent's throat, right? Like it's the mystery man that ends up killing him with the bullet to the head, and then hands him the gun, and it's still his own inability to ever face the fact that he's killed somebody in it, right?
He's
like,
seen as an external force still, even after.
Right. Yeah.
And then he hands him the gun in the same way that, I mean, you know, every single time, right? Like, even in his own mind, when he goes to throw the guy, and the guy, we didn't even talk about the glass table. Like, we definitely have to talk about that part of it.
Oh, we did talk about the glass table, but we dropped off.
Right.
I said I've never looked at a glass table the same since, and apparently there's a whole like movie about just that scene.
You could put a cat on top of a glass table and then look at it from underneath, and that's really amusing. There are very good, pleasant ways to use a glass table.
Excellent. And he'll scratch it up too. So
I one of the ones with the corners. Wait, so what I was gonna say is, like in each of those sequences, has an inability to reckon with the fact that he does something to kill the person. It's either an accident, or he watches himself sitting over the body, or the mystery man does it. My thing with the cabin though, I think you could look at this whole thing in a lot of ways as a commentary on his own, on David Lynch's own failure at this time to kind of make it in the TV production business. So I think that there is a deliberate use of that cabin as the Twin Peaks Lodge. But I also think that throughout this, right, like the VCR thing and the fact that there's like literally the quote where he goes, "Oh, I like remembering my own memories the way that I remember them, not the way that they're told to me or the way that a videotape could tell." I feel like there's commentary on TV, and the obsession with the O.J. Simpson trial too. Like that's the kind of thing people want to watch, not the more heady kind of surrealist stuff that David Lynch is putting out there. And I think that there's his own creative frustration on that fact throughout this whole movie. He's constantly he's watching he's stuck watching other pornographic things on TV, or he's stuck watching the videotapes of somebody literally sleeping. Like that's basically the news, like what's going on right now. Like like these stories are what people want to watch, not the more heady stuff that David Lynch wants to put out there. So I feel like in some ways it's a commentary on TV itself,
sensationalism and all that.
Yeah. And look at it now, true crime is bigger than ever. I mean, David Lynch probably knows all the podcasts that have come about since, but I found a little have you guys seen the note David Lynch sent his parents when Eraserhead came out?
I don't think so.
He said, "Dear Mom and Dad, please don't see the film Eraserhead. Don't tell anyone I did."
I mean, I love the quote that you had that I kind of stole, but it was in the thing where he's a
very serious guy.
His parents have quiet Presbyterianism. He's like, "I rebelled against the quiet Presbyterianism of my parents."
Right.
It's like
by
you cannot
becoming a Boy Scout
too seriously.
Yeah, he rebelled by becoming a Boy Scout.
Right.
But I was also going to say with the Henry Rollins character, right? Like going back to that, like even that as like the Black Flag, like the TV Party Tonight song where they're all making fun of the fact that everybody's watching TV every single night. And like even that character, right? Like it feels deliberate putting Henry Rollins in there, and then literally his name is Guard Henry. Like
which is
make it difficult for him, you know.
And again, can't overstate. Same guy whose band wrote Police Story, which is not the Naked Gun.
He also does.
That's all I'm going to say.
Great stand-up as well. I love listening to Henry Rollins talk.
guy.
It's the line that you were talking about that I love to remember stuff differently than maybe. What an awful red flag. Can you imagine standing next to your husband? The cops are in your house. You just got that terrible, and then he goes and says that shit. Like, oh man.
I like to remember things my own way, not necessarily the way that they happen. Yeah.
He is a gaslighting machine. He is the inventor of gaslighting. He's like
like you said it's so cool. It sounds so cool, but when you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah, it is kind of funny. So yeah, I don't want to cut anyone off, but I want to say that the Lost Highway Hotel, real place. It's called the Amargosa Opera House and Hotel. It's in Death Valley Junction, which is right outside Death Valley National Park. It's about 30 miles from Tanopo, which is a whole story in and of itself. Very deserted part of California on the way to Nevada. It has a population of less than 20 people. I forget exactly what it is.
Oh.
But it was put together by this ballet dancer named Marta Beckett, who was going from New York to move to California, and she broke down around there, and there was an old borax factory kind of company script. Here's where you live, and you hang out and eat, and then like you go to the mines to go mine borax during the day. And she decided to buy it and turn it into an opera house because there was a performance space that she could perform at. Nightly, and people. She was very well known. She was well known for being a ballet dancer that ballet dancer that was could bring an audience. If you can think of like a marquee ballet person. Yeah. So it's a real place. I've been there multiple times. I can't find any of my pictures, unfortunately, but this is the Lost Highway Hotel from the movie.
Lost Highway Hotel. I feel so lonely, baby.
Is it creepy inside it, or is it just?
What's funny? So this is what it actually looks like. This building you can't actually go into, but because it's not the actual hotel. The hotel. So basically, if you were in the parking lot of the hotel, you'd be looking out. It'd be this building, but it is the corner, like where this road is. That corner, exterior corner. Is one of those roads that you just drive for forever where you don't see anything for like 40 minutes. And then suddenly you're like, what's that building? And it is one of the craziest feelings that you'll ever hear. Let me put this over here. I wish I could find some of my actual pictures from some of the times that I've been there. But
do you know?
This is what it looks like. They rehabbed it a little bit and just put I think it's a Death Valley Junction. And let me see if I can crank that up a little bit. But it is an incredible place.
All that hotel, and then had the idea because like Lost Highway was the the initial thought for this movie, right? Like he's like, what would be along the Lost Highway? And assumably he saw the hotel and then had that idea, or
right, because they got a flat tire is what it is. So it's more than likely like he was going to visit, because here is, and I cannot stress enough, this is the actual Amargosa Opera House where she did her performances. And she painted all of the walls.
Oh my!
Oh wow!
So she painted up classic kings and queens and all these different kinds of people, these murals. And the idea would be that she would always have an audience, and she wanted. And so this is the actual opera house. So that's the building that you can go into, and then there's a plaque. It looks like. So here's what's nuts to me. The hallways are used, but this is what the actual hallways and stuff looks like. They shot around some of that stuff, but this is how the looks like from the outside. But it's crazy to me because it's almost like it'd be too much visual stimuli for what he was trying to do with it. But it's such a perfect David Lynch place with the actual art.
Yeah. I think they were going for more of a liminal space, and I noticed because I was watching the movie, there was only 3 paintings on any wall in the entire movie, and there were ones in his house. So like, yeah, that's such a classic thing to do, to create a space that doesn't really feel like it does or doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
But it's crazy because they did the internal, so the rooms were somewhere different, but the hallways are absolutely the Amargosa hallways.
Yeah.
It was definitely like, especially after having been there since I've seen it, it was like, oh my God, that's so crazy. But like all of the art there is so beautiful, but like out of context, it like wouldn't have worked with what he was doing in the movie, because it was supposed to be like anywhere, like, where is this hotel? Like nowhere?
Literally.
So it wouldn't have worked.
Thanks for sharing that. That's super cool.
Yeah, you bring up a really interesting point about the long drive up to that hotel. This movie has that super iconic shot of the road that you've seen. It's almost an Akira slide level of this is iconic shot.
Yeah, right.
It feels like I've always known this shot, and yet here it is coming at us for the first time, and it feels so amazing.
Mm-hmm. That kind of makes you think about the Mobius strip theory too, of the highway itself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
it really is like a Mobius strip, like the lot of it too. Like,
and what's so crazy is if you inadvertently, I've driven at night, like in that area and many areas in the desert, and it is like that. We're just like blackness. There's just blackness, and you see like the lines coming at you, and like that is it. And you might as well be in orbit, because they're just like you can't see anything.
It's like that and Final Destination are the two movies that you're like, God, why am I driving and having a scene from a movie in front of me?
Right. I avoid those log trucks. I'm like, Mom, go, get around.
Oh yeah, that's one of the only one of those movies that I've seen is the one where you get crushed by the log truck.
I still love them all. I've seen them all.
I move the van over immediately. I see one of those. I'm like, nope.
Yep.
There's something like
not today.
Yep.
I'm sure everybody on the panel has had this happen, but it's like you're driving at night and you see something out of the corner of your eye that like doesn't really make sense, or that you can't tell what it is, and your brain starts turning like what the fuck is this thing in the road? Like, is this? Is it that? Like your brain literally starts moving, and it feels like and it feels like throughout this whole thing that surreal, like that it's almost unpacking that and like bringing it further and further out, like that, like you're living in that surreal moment, you're living in that unknown space, like
it's letting your brain look at those images and almost make sense of them, but just kind of experience them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
I literally shouted him out when he said the metafictional reading of the film.
He literally called you out, man. Yeah, so. Missed it. It's got to start it over from the beginning. But yes, we did. Yeah. Anything else before we move on?
Ooh, we didn't talk about the videotapes. I mean, we did, but I mean, what our stance is on them. Like, how do we feel about the tapes?
I'm against them.
You never just put it
very
in
bold.
You never just find a tape and put it in the, but I guess those movies hadn't come out yet. That would have.
But do you think they're real? Is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
I
think
I don't know. You think they what now?
I think they are, but I'm curious what you guys think.
Yeah. I think they are, but it's him. I mean, it's clearly him filming it, right? Like he's doing the actual filming, and I mean, he like for the ones where he's sleeping, obviously just set it up, and it's filming stuff.
That's what I
but,
thought too.
Because I think that the only time that you're really seeing, or one of the only times you're really definitely seeing what he's seeing, is when he's on the tapes, like over the body, and I like for that to be real, all the other tapes have to be real too. But I think he's kind of just sending the tapes to
Same. Okay, cool.
Yep.
I'm not sure I think that they're real, because there are aspects of the way that they interact with the VHS machine and the playback of them that are anachronistic to my experience with those machines. Like, why would they store it all the way to the right in that cabinet and then have the TV directly? The positioning only makes sense if this is also a dream, where I'm like, I don't give a. So I put it in the thing is over here, and then it's playing on the thing over, like. There were aspects of that made me think that, like, I'm not sure. This might be tapes that he's made in his mind. She also
kind
doesn't
of a
want
chaos
to engage
mode
with them.
feng shui in that house.
Like, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like, what is that there?
Dark hallway, creepy.
Yeah.
It's the classic. Has the leaves all over it.
you gotta erase the tapes you made in your own mind. You know what I mean? Like,
You're the trash,
okay?
motherfucker.
I just think it kind of makes sense that I'm not saying that all of the tapes are real, but like it kind of makes sense that he's this creepy dude that's clearly filming himself killing his wife, and like he's stalking around holding that camera. I feel like that's.
Oh, I mean, my theory is a bit out there, but it's one that I believe, and that's that he set up surveillance.
Yeah.
I remember because there's a comment.
Yeah.
That the cop makes at one point, and he says, or somebody makes.
Do you
it.
have a security system, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
It kept going off.
Fluid.
Yeah. Like, oh, we did, but it doesn't work anymore. And it's like, oh, he could be feeding that into his own thing and telling her, gaslighting her into thinking it doesn't work anymore. But I also like to film himself sleeping.
Cops aren't real?
And he just got away with it because nobody found it.
Yeah.
But it's also like it's kind of in a way, like in a weird way, like not saying breadcrumbs, but it's like it sets up a motive within the cop's mind. Oh, they were totally getting harassed by this person who keeps dropping off videotapes. It's like, oh, that person. Then there's never a person that they find. So it's kind of, I mean, it's person delving into psychosis level thinking, like schizo thinking. But like, it's like, oh, well, if I set up an appointment with the cops and I keep having this thing where my wife is calling the police saying a guy keeps dropping tapes off at the house, then it's like, well, maybe that guy did it. I mean, it's top.
Do they have late fees? Dun dun dun.
I mean, you guys have heard about frogging, right?
What?
Frogging, like the frogging. It's when people live inside other people's apartments in the walls, but only will come out when they're not there.
Yeah, that's not the least horrifying at all. Yeah.
Kind of like Parasite.
That's
Kind of like Parasite, but this is a real thing that people actually do. It happens a lot in New York City because there's crawl spaces that you don't know about because your landlord never told you about. And so sometimes people will get,
very contribute to that rent.
Sleeping from.
I think I remember just seeing like that mirror where it's like a mirror and they took it down. Like there's a whole other like room like behind this mirror, which is not.
Remember, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia the last season. Frank's like, Charlie, what's behind this door? They actually had a bathroom and a whole big separate room. And he's like, you've been hiding this from us? He's like, it's just too much space. And I'm like, wow, some lore finally, coming to fruition, I guess.
Well, that's one of the fears
really?
They're playing.
Wait, hold on. You found one? Is that what you said?
I found one, yes, at an apartment because there was like a draft behind the door, and then we took the door apart, and then there was actually more steps because you could see that there was like steps going somewhere. So then you took the steps apart because that wasn't the top part, and it led to a whole like second enclosed part of a wing on the top that you could see was like somehow not included in that apartment. They just cut it out because they didn't want to pay to heat it. so we reconnected it.
You know what? I've seen the heating bill. Hard relatable.
But they're like, your apartment has one bedroom. Just fuck up.
I'm imagining the trucks in Goodfellas where the guy's frozen. There's like a frozen guy up there.
Man, that's where I live today.
The whole time we were climbing into it, we're like, oh, please don't be any dead people.
I mean, but that also gets to the fear of like the old cask of Amontillado or whatever story, the old one where they literally build the.
If you hear jingling bells, head for the hills.
But they play on that fear of, I guess, frog. I didn't know it was called frogging, but like they play on that fear in like Beau is Afraid, right? With how many different places that somebody could conceivably hide, like almost like a cockroach style in your.
Or like put up surveillance in the house. You don't realize there's a Sidney Sweeney film called The Voyeurs, and like rich people own the building across. Sidney Sweeney's character.
I wouldn't watch that if I were you. I mean, I would stay away from that.
I watched this years ago. What are you talking about? But yeah, it was a very interesting, creepy movie. But also, it's one of her first like projects that she did herself that she felt comfortable doing.
We got a few super chats. Can we get to those so we can do the Letterboxd one-liners, please?
Yes.
Yeah, hold on. I mean, one of them was
here for Rayyvana. Noted. Wonder if Trent Reznor ever got the sound of snakes coming out of a box and rushing at his face. Good question. Take that, Atticus Ross. That's right.
Watch that Barry Gifford written film Dance with the Devil, Perdido Durango, that's set in the world of Wild at Heart, directed by Alex de la Iglesia. And then wasn't Lost Highway based on a series of photos that Lynch shot and printed?
I don't know. That's
probably.
Maybe with Lynch, it's possible, you know.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think anything's on the table. I'm not familiar with that specifically, but
yeah,
I don't know. If you told me that authoritatively, I'd probably believe you. I'm like, yep. Sounds good.
Yep.
These are photographs of a lost highway that I took and printed.
Yeah,
we're basing the movie off this.
I absolutely believe it. Great. So Letterboxd, of course, is a place for film lovers to talk at, with, and to each other about the movies they love, maybe the movies they didn't love, the movies that they were desperately searching for explainers on YouTube, as at least 1/3 of the reviews are saying. And of course, it's a bottom-up democracy. Everyone gets to have their say, not just Siskel's and Eberts, noted non-fans of this movie specifically, of the world, but everyone gets to chime in, opine. Everyone gets to say their piece. And of course, this is all best expressed succinctly. You keep it short, you collect them to present on air for the episodes, for the movies that we cover weekly, collated by myself. These are the Letterboxd one-liners for Lost Highway. Let's go. Horrifying little guy covered in white makeup who just came up to me in a party. I am in your house right now. Rock on,
brother. He left it up to Robert Blake, which now knowing what happened, like the story of Robert Blake is kind of hilarious that this is what he came. But he left all the characterization up to Robert Blake and was like, I love what you've done in other movies. Usually playing a cop, which but like do something different with this. Do whatever you want. And actually, Robert Blake came up with the white face, like the I think he almost referred to it as like geisha makeup and the hair and everything. That's all him.
It feels like
Because
Baby
of
Jane.
Yeah. It's giving Baby Jane.
There's a there's like a Criterion extra for some movie I saw recently that had Robert Blake just doing a straight reading. It looked like somebody had locked him in an attic and he was just like telling you things about the movie, but I don't remember what it was for. But I was like, that's Robert Blake. Well before he was allegedly a murderer. It's like 80s Robert Blake.
Or guy who supposedly paid. I don't know. The story is weird. The story of what happened to his wife is weird.
Yeah. Definitely more aware of tables after seeing that. I'll be going in a more circular direction from now on.
I'll trust
I feel like so many things have ripped that off since then too, right?
That's what I was saying. Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, my internet's fucked up. I only get half the conversation.
No, but, we all agree.
Weeds did it. I think Breaking Bad did it. Like crazy.
I've known to vacuum into glass tables with pointed corners, so I get it. I'm like, where'd that bruise come from? And they're like, oh yeah, the glass table.
By the way, it was a Discovering Treasure, the story of the treasure of the Sierra Madre that Robert Blake was like stuck in an attic talking about treasure of the Sierra Madre.
Oh wow,
there you go.
I also yeah.
Go ahead.
I want to say with the table thing, the fact that they do when he hits the table, it's a cymbal hit out of everything is very funny too.
Oh sure, yeah, a little slapstick for you. Yeah, some Marx Brothers.
Yeah, classic Chaplin, always hitting those glass tables.
I'm convinced David Lynch wrote and directed this entire movie just because he got tailgated sometime.
I mean, that pretty as a picture documentary is great. But like the fact that it's Robert Loggia being like, listen, I wanted to get cast in Blue Velvet, and he said that he's definitely giving himself excuses with this, but he's like, I waited in the hot room for an hour and David Lynch never showed up, so I called him and I was mad and I cursed him out. And then he's friends with Bill Pullman, and Bill Pullman contacted him and was like, look, there's this movie we're talking about, we're talking about this movie Lost Highway, and he's like, David Lynch, I cursed him out, he'd never cast me. And then he's like, and then he did cast me.
Worked to his favor.
He referred to himself as mean as a dog too, which I love.
Yeah, that's great. By the way, this has also got the 2 thumbs down custom poster for the people watching the video, which is great. That's a good custom poster.
Well, I mean, at some point, right? Like it's almost like a meme. Like Siskel and Ebert they hated every David Lynch movie. Noted. Like
Yeah.
What did Pauline Kael think about it? Is what I'm curious.
It's a good question. I don't know. A minute after getting my throat slit in the desert. So what do you guys want?
The only better line than that might have been like, "Oh, you got me" or something. Right,
yeah, totally.
So who are you guys? And remember, I only have a minute here because
exactly. Keep it snappy. True romance. If Clarence in Alabama took the hardest drugs mankind could ever make.
Yep. True.
She's so hot in True Romance too, and it's in a completely different way. Maybe I'm just publicly thirst posting for this.
Wow, Forrest, you're pulling a me right now, honestly.
Yeah. I don't know what to say other than having sex on desert sand in the dead of night seems to be one of the worst ways of having sex.
Dude, let me tell you something. If you ever read Cosmopolitan and there's girls posting like their like sex stories or whatever, when they talk about sex on the beach, I'm like, is there a towel involved? Because sand up your butt crack must be the worst feeling in the world.
It's not great. Yeah.
Not hot.
I think it's the
take it right out of the mood.
The spontaneity of it, right? But it's like there's other ways to be spontaneous.
Yeah. Pinball machines, am I right?
Because I know
that chafe a lot less. Yes.
Going to the beach in general, like you're like, where did all this sand come from? Like the sand never stops.
I hate sand.
So I can't imagine like having sex on the beach and then like a month later you still have sand.
The first act is actually La La Land's true third act.
That's
good. Yeah.
Touche.
I laughed.
I'm a sax man.
Watching Robert Loggia run an asshole tailgater off the road and then berate him with driving safety information while beating the shit out of him is one of the most cathartic experiences I have ever had.
Dude, it's so funny that he's like, do you know how many drivers are killed every year? 50,000 times.
So good.
It's like when they make you take one of those like one of those classes when you get your license and they're trying to find a way to make the stats part of it more exciting to keep you paying attention, but instead it's just bow, bow, bow.
Well, and it's I feel like if I'd seen that scene out of context before I saw the movie, I would have thought it was a completely different kind of movie. I was like, I don't know. I guess he's a driver's ed instructor. I don't know.
I would have been like The Sopranos.
Hadn't come out yet. At the heart of it, this is a film about playing jazz music will turn you into an insane person.
So I think it's really like thinking about like 90s symbology, right? Like it's very funny that he's kind of like the white OJ, but they give him a saxophone like Bill Clinton, like our first black president.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Do not talk about Bill Clinton. Just kidding.
And it does feel like that H. John Benjamin jazz where it's like, did he play the saxophone before they gave him that saxophone?
The jazz daredevil thing, yeah.
Yeah, oh my God.
Loose
that was
jazz.
Another thing on Loggia's character, though, I'm actually for once glad you made a random Sopranos reference for us because it did come out 2 years before The Sopranos, and that kind of depiction of gangsters did not exist in popular media.
Yeah, well, and it's hard to have that kind of depiction of gangsters without having it be like a drawn-out series, right? Where you're like, we have to fill in time and show you what the gangsters are talking about, besides bumping people off. This isn't a 2.5-hour movie. This is we're gonna be watching this for a while.
The closest thing we had gotten that was with Goodfellas and like the kitchen scene, right? But anyway, Mulholland Drive.
See.
There you go.
I'm watching Mulholland Drive.
Those are the Letterboxd one-liners for Lost Highway. Please follow the show on our Letterboxd HQ account at Movie Night Extra, where we have stories covering all of the great movies that we cover, all these fun extras, tidbits, morsels, if you will. Follow on there. It's a good time. The inmate at the Henry Rollins jail over there, Forrest, that always Flacco. Your host, he is covering.
I'm locked up at the Henry Rollins jail.
Henry Rollins jail. I like it. Spooky stuff. I guess we got to let him out.
At least they let me have a TV party tonight.
He's just waiting for Gary Busey to come and rescue him.
To come bail him out, exactly.
Dad, I need money. And he's like, I spent your money on cocaine, but we'll try to make something happen. Maybe I have a little bit of money between my teeth.
Follow him for his David Lynch journey that he's currently doing, as well as all the other stuff that he's doing in conjunction.
Going
with
on a journey.
There it is. You've been remarkably restrained the entire episode, so appreciate that. I am at Conan Neutron. At Conan Neutron, I like to remember things my own way, just like a certain Bill Pullman, which isn't creepy at all. And I'm watching the Highbrow, the Midbrow, the Populous Fair. Follow me along for the Criterion Challenge 2025, as well as many other things, the Borny, et cetera, et cetera. KT is also doing Criterion Challenge. We'll get to that, though. Kristina is the Found Interstate at Cosmopolitics, but find her at Kristina on Letterboxd, where she deigns to log now and again.
I love a few movies during this podcast.
There you go. Rayyvana, the mystery. Whoa, man. Was that a So I Married an Axe Murderer? Yeah. Oh, his slam poetry? Not great. Sorry you got a Mike Myers reference in there, Rayyvana. But Rayyvana, you do have a Letterboxd account. It's at Rayyvana, if I remember correctly. Right?
Yeah, I've done no reviews.
Your only log is 2001: A Space Odyssey, which was the last time you were on this show.
That was an excellent episode. Everyone should check it out. I want everyone to know that I did not just rewatch this movie on my cracked iPhone. I got a big ass TV.
I was about to narc you out to Marta that she watched 2001 on a cracked iPhone on the bus, which was like not only blew my mind, it blew Jerry Casali of Devo's mind.
Yeah, I was gonna tell you, Jonas gave Jerry Casali a stroke, and he just had a kid.
Amazing. So I guess follow Rayyvana if you want to
see that review.
Just see a single log for 2001.
I'll get to posting. Don't worry.
Yeah, you can do a second one.
It's a good log to have.
Yeah. Only have
I rate this 5 out of 5 cracked iPhone screens.
That's your rating measurement. It's good. KT, Fred Sachs Appeal at Movie Runtime on Letterboxd. She, as I mentioned, also in the Criterion Challenge, along with myself, also logging stuff for her great show, Movie Runtime. And What If I Don't Like It? That is the actual show. And you can see all the stuff she's doing for that, for those two shows, as well as this show. And maybe even once in a while, a movie for pleasure. Who knows? Wild idea. Never happened, Jack.
No.
That sax appeal, like the sax appeal name, just reminded me of the stupid Simpsons reference where the jazz album is called Sax on the Beach.
Oh, right.
Yes. The jazz man. Sorry.
Marta's at Marta McFly on Letterboxd. A great follow, highly recommended. Reason why she's wrapped up in this foolish just right now, hearing about Mike Myers quotes and sax on the beach. So blame me for that, I guess. But also
he's Shrek.
Head down. I'm remembering all this. That's why I married an axe murderers. But follow her on Letterboxd as well. And let's hit it with the plugs.
If you're watching us on YouTube, please like and subscribe, and then hit the bell to get notified whenever we're streaming. And we'd humbly request that you watch the video to the end, because it helps us with the algorithm and helps more film fans to discover the show. We're also monetized. If you want to get your chat questions definitely read on stream, you can always send us a super chat, which will help us keep the show going. Every cent helps. If you're watching on Twitch, you can gift us a free sub on Amazon Prime with your Prime membership, but getting subs on Twitch is always appreciated, and it helps to follow us on there as well. We also have an audio feed, which is available wherever you download podcasts, if you prefer to listen to podcasts rather than watch the stream. That's updated usually the same day we stream, but watching on YouTube and Twitch is the best way to get the show first, live as it happens. If you want to support us with a monthly donation and get access to all of our after parties forever, which go patron only after we do them, you can become a patron at patreon.com/movie night extra. Link is in the description for that. It really helps us keep the show going since we do have some expenses to make this happen. We also have a Discord community. Link is in the description for that. We sometimes watch movies we cover on there. We get into conversations about everything from film to TV shows to related podcasts. We even have a Discord channel for memes. It's really fun on there. You can find us on all the social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, Twitter, and Threads. You connect with us on all of those. Talk to us. We'd love to hear from you. Lastly, we recently made a TikTok at Movie Night Extra where we're putting up short form clips from the episodes. Okay, passing this to Conan so he can tell you about his music and this week's Protonic Reversal. Conan, who's on Protonic this week?
Yeah, Brian Case of Facts and Disappears 90 Day Men. So that's coming up on Thursday. Also have the Camera Obscura episode hitting the free feed on Monday. $1 a month, patreon.com/ProtonControversial. Advance access to all that good stuff, as well as the entire back catalog. Always free, no ads, no sponsors, no kidding. ProtonControversial.com. So much Secret Friends news to announce, including the new record, and it's not going to be this show either. But soon enough. There's a lot of it coming.
Announce it. Announce it.
Conan, announce the tour dates. Billy,
Minute Maid orange juice has lots of vitamin C.
I came up with the idea of in a movie. You take the entire cast and you just replace Robert Loggia with one of the cast, and
And it's Nosferatu.
It's Nosferatu is what Forrest.
Appetite, nothing more.
An appetite. Anyway, Conan, Neutron, Secret Friends, Neutron Friends out, bandcamp.com. Keep eyes peeled for that. Pre-orders for the new record will be up fairly soon. Also, Caterwaul. We've announced the first 10 bands for Caterwaul 2025, caterwaul.org. We have Piss Jeans, iFlies, all kinds of great bands playing. So caterwaul.org or Caterwaul Fest on most of the social medias to find out about that. We just put 4-day passes up, so that'll be happening in May as per normal. I think that is it. That should be it. Kristina, what do you got?
Well, I've been streaming my ass off. I haven't taken a break since last Monday. Yeah. I also, good news, guys. We finally finished an entire storyline in Dark Shadows. We finished the 1795 storyline. We're back in the 60s. It took 18 full hours of streaming, but we got there. Yes. I'm very excited. Yes, I'm very excited.
How many are left?
There's like 1,200 episodes, Conan.
Oh my God.
We're only in the 400s.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, so it's gonna take plenty of Shadow Saturdays to get it done. What else do I got going on?
Shadow Saturday.
Oh, I got okay. So, in my Discord server, we're gonna watch Nosferatu tonight because I got it. Yeah, I'm going
really?
all
okay.
Yeah, and
We're
of course,
doing an after party first, right?
yes, obviously.
Yeah. After party. TV
Barnabas.
We're gonna have a TV.
Why do you have so many episodes?
We're gonna have a TV party tonight. All right.
Did not get canceled. It was gonna get canceled, but then they made about seriously. If your show is
cast
failing,
Robert Loggia. That's crazy.
If your show is failing, out of vampire, out of supernatural, your show will last for another few years. Poor Charles did it too for General Hospital.
There you go.
Oh, all right. Movie. The cast is the same, but you replace somebody with Robert Loggia. The Super Mario Brothers movie from the '90s, but they replaced Bob Hoskins. I'm gonna fix your pipe, Luigi.
See, I want to go something like Stalker. You know,
also,
like he's the guide.
Yes, knowing
like you gotta be quiet here, and he'd be like, "Why do I have to be quiet?"
They need Jesus in their lives.
Yeah, it's snowing right now, and it's great. I love it.
It's snowing.
Yeah.
All right.
And I'm actually
hang out for the after party if you want to hear a lot more of this. Apparently, we're gonna stop doing it now and finish the parties.
Yeah.
He said for the team.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm just gonna keep streaming. That's all I really got going on.
Just keep streaming. Just keep streaming.
Keep streaming. Yeah, seriously. So.
All right. Next, we have Rayyvana. What have you been up to? Anything you want to plug?
I haven't been streaming pretty much at all since I got my new job, but I stream every other Thursday with Dan from the internet, and we made it BAM, aka Shadow Bammed. So you can always check that out. I stream on my channel, they stream on theirs for Power Report, so that's always fun. And obviously the state of the world is descending into complete chaos, so follow me on Twitter for my stream of consciousness and to see how long it takes me to say something that will get me permanently banned from the platform.
You just have to
cusp, I can feel it.
You just have to insult Elon Musk enough, I think. But,
Dan said like Elon Musk responded to Dan's tweet about who's going to get the guillotine first, and he said Elon Musk, and Elon Musk was like, when?
But like now,
so if you want to hear about that, follow Rayyvana.
Now you can't do the most powerful debate tactic of all time and say, "Now listen, I'm no big city lawyer." Now you are a big city.
Oh no!
I'm just a caveman. Your loud noises frighten me. Yeah.
But Katie, what's up? Let's hear some plugs. How's the podcast going, etc.
Good. We've got a theme song. I finally recorded a little 30-second theme song that explains what the show is about, as if the title doesn't explain it. But it is a cute new theme song for season 2 that's there. We got some guests to announce coming up. I'm going to shift into that part where I'll be giving you mini episodes. So coming up on the 1st of February, you're going to get a mini episode of the first episode we ever recorded, which ironically it fits into this conversation because it was So I Married an Axe Murderer. So
that's right. That's right.
You can listen to a shorter one. I'm going into a format where we're going to kind of take away part 1, condense it really hard. And so I'm going to re-edit these older episodes to format so that you can see what that would be like with older episodes. So it'll be about an hour shorter. We're going to just have the front end be me giving a video to the guest about why I think this movie is really great and what to expect. And the guest giving me either a video or something written that I'll read out loud about why they're hesitant and have skipped this movie. That's going to be on the 1st. And on the 15th, we have Matt Stracting from The Letter Hack coming on.
Letter Hack.
The Letter Hack. Cabin in the Woods. So,
nice. He's never seen Cabin in the Woods. I feel like that movie is right up his alley.
Yeah,
I know. It's like such a win. Actually, so I made a list of.
What do we have on for the first time? The Handmaiden? Was it The Handmaiden? We probably was like, hey, you want to watch The Handmaiden with us?
He's never gotten to pick a movie.
I made a list of movies that I really like that are divisive, and then I sent them out to a bunch of guests, and they're picking ones off of the list, and I'm like, oh, this is great. I didn't think people had not seen this. Because I've also got Harry Marks, who will be our guest coming up on the Sweet Smell of Success episode, because he's never seen No Country for Old Men, and that also feels like a great conversation to have with someone with this kind of knowledge.
It's like a layup for him. That's it's crazy.
And I'm going to put the spotlight on the one over here because she's going to be a third guest as well coming up soon. We don't have a movie yet, but we will have Marta on very soon. So that's what's happening.
No Country for Old Men. Javier Bardem replaced by Robert Loggia.
With the bowl cut.
With the bowl. But no attempt to alter his accent.
It's like, what's the most you ever lost in a coin toss?
It's very Denzel of him to just be like, this is how I talk. This is how every character I ever played talks.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Great. I respect it. Billy.
So that's what's going on with What If I Don't Like It. Please subscribe to me on YouTube, because that's where you're going to get a lot of this new content coming out over there. Kind of vamping up my shorts there as well, because I kind of want to move away from TikTok, which Alexis Gentry has well described as Pet Cemetery, where like, this is alive, but I don't think it's the same anymore.
It's not the same.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I haven't really been on TikTok like once since it came back.
Sometimes dead is better.
Yeah. Sometimes dead is better, exactly. Because some of these accounts that I'm getting followed by now are all just like pictures of the Constitution, and I'm like, whoa.
No.
What is this document?
And people tell me the algorithm hasn't changed, KT.
I just want to talk about weird movies from the 80s. Sorry. So follow me on YouTube.
Too many amendments on this algorithm.
It's like a picture of an eagle and then of like a bass fish and then a picture of the Constitution, and I'm just like, I don't know why you're following my movie.
It reminds me of the Better Call Saul commercials where he's like the eagle sound. He's like, do you know you have rights? Well, you do. Marta, what's going on? How's stuff going?
It's going. No, things are going great. I'm in the finishing stages right now of launching my publication and new podcast. That's going to be a joint venture. Nice. I have done the intro music. I'm just waiting on the branding now. So hoping that launches in February. If you want to keep up with that, I think the best thing to do is follow my Instagram, marta.mcfly. I'll post updates there, but until then, if you want to read some long ass Letterboxd reviews,
I do.
You can do that. I know Conan's like the only one that reads. Loyal number one. So that's just Marta McFly, no period.
All right. We'll go the opposite way that we went this way to say, Marta, final thoughts
on Lost Highway.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it. 10 out of 10. Great film. Yeah.
I feel like it's funny to do like final thoughts after like a 2-hour long conversation that hits every
point.
I
know. I don't know what to say.
Good movie.
Well, especially for like a heady movie, like like this, whereas it's like Hitman. Yeah, it's good. I don't know. I laughed. It's good.
No, I love it. I think it may not be the best Lynch film to start with if you've never seen anything else by him. Yeah. But I think it's wonderful to tackle after you've seen, especially Blue Velvet and Mulholland Drive. Actually, especially Mulholland Drive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, Mulholland Drive.
I wish they had more men in this movie. How do I find? Oh, Lost Highway.
Imagine starting with Inland Empire. By the way,
oh god,
can you imagine?
By the way, Conan, I'm supposed to remind you that like since we talked about the best entry level, we have we'll do it in the after party, I guess. But we in our Discord. You're right, Forrest. Thank you for reminding me. I did ask you to remind me that we asked our Discord, which everybody should join if they have not already, to vote for their favorite David Lynch film. And we're going to reveal the results of this poll on our after party coming up next. So in mere moments. So if you're in line, stay in line. Vote for Inland Empire. No, I think it's the only one nobody has voted for so far.
Wow. Wow.
So, although now that I said that, I'm sure someone's going to vote for it.
Yeah.
They look, just if you're in line, stay in line, but don't give anybody water because
Larry David learned that the hard way.
But Katie, final thoughts. We're going back around. We're going back around the way we came on this Lost Highway.
I always want to do like a hard poll where like at the end of what if I don't like it, I'll say so the guests like, so after 2 hours of talking, did you like it? As if we don't know already, and I want to be like, hey, this movie sucked. Like, no, it's a good movie, and I think you really hit the nail on the head, Marta, when you're saying it's part of almost like a trilogy with Blue Velvet and Mulholland Drive. Like, you kind of just got to watch them all together. I do find that the more you watch it, the more this one really just kind of feels like it makes a lot of sense. Like, it's the least confusing. It doesn't start with just finding an ear in a field, so I feel like, you know, you're going to access it. But yeah, I enjoy it. I think it's great, and I can't imagine why people haven't seen it. So
I'm trying to remember who said this. But I was reading a quote, and I want to remember who said it because it's like somebody that, like, you know, it's like a famous person that was being a critic. But they were talking about the difference between Tarantino and David Lynch, and they were like, the difference between Tarantino and David Lynch is the difference between no, it's the difference between violence as voyeurism with Tarantino, like ripping somebody's ear off, and David Lynch, when there's an ear on the ground, he wants to pick it up and analyze how the ear got there in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think I was saying that earlier with the idea that, like, if you're just looking at the fulfillment of the violence, you're missing the point. It's a little bit more about the dream experience, and that's why I like. Oh, nice. You could watch a French film called Cachet, which literally removes all of the like weight of this film and gives you a really pretentious and pointless and unsatisfying version of the story. So if you're not sure why David Lynch works, watch Cachet and this movie, and you're like, oh, that's it. It's what's missing from this film.
That's Haneke, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing I've seen by him is Piano Teacher. I've never even seen Funny Games, either version. But
like getting cursed.
Funny Games. There's a lot.
Funny Games.
It's not funny.
Yeah,
that's not very funny.
Here. Not very funny film.
Not very funny, and definitely not a game.
I both decide it's a really good film. I think you guys should watch it if you can stomach it. The original, not the.
Yeah, I can't.
I'll hit it eventually. Got to be the right mood. I
Oh,
don't know what mood that would be, but
Rayyvana, final thoughts.
Final thoughts. It's an excellent film. It's not my favorite of his films, but it's, you know, it's very good, very compelling. I'll say, you know, final thoughts because he just passed away. It's crazy the impact that someone that you've never met and will never meet can have on your life and your outlook on the world. And I feel like a lot of people feel that way about David Lynch. And I mean, even just to see the reactions of all the actors that he's worked with and all the positive things that they had to say about him, not just now that he's passed, but before he passed and the relationships he forged with them. And I mean, even his series of ex-girlfriends and ex-wives never having anything bad to say about him.
Right?
I mean,
Yeah.
What a
I just feel like it just goes to show the kind of person that he really was. And it's a huge loss. And apparently partially due to the fires in California, somewhat confirmed by a Newsweek article. So that's even more devastating. That
You know what? Whoever's responsible for the fires needs to be charged with manslaughter.
Manslaughter.
I want to piggyback off of that really quickly, just because I didn't get it. I should have said that as well. And I thought David Lynch was such a special filmmaker and we really lost not even somebody who is so prolific in film, but art as a whole. I personally have never had a filmmaker death affect me as much as this one has.
Yeah. I feel like part of it is like how far these films burrow into your mind too. Like just because of the subject matter. It's like it's hard to not be affected when you've like feel like you've delved into someone's brain, or at least the parts of their brain that they were willing to show you. This is my, you know, like, Kristina, final thoughts.
Fuck Netflix for not letting David Lynch do a final project and do Amelia Perez instead. But Lost Highway, very Lynchian cult classic. I'm glad in recent years it's developed a cult following, because this is actually, you know, not that my favorite David Lynch film was obviously Blue Velvet.
Same.
Because my love for the song and just feeling very nostalgic about that being like, you know, like another like Lynch movie that I saw when I was really young. And so I always recommend, you know, watch all his films, you know, especially with Lost Highway, Mulholland Drive, or Manholland Drive, as we put it out.
That one got me. I'm not going to lie. That one really got me. I was like, that's
don't overthink it.
Manholland Mondays.
Don't think too hard when it comes to his like Forrest says, you know, his stuff can be intimidating. I get it. But you end up, you know, enjoying it, loving it, appreciating it, and you get to also learn about David Lynch as a person during the journey.
Even if you're not quite sure what you learned about him as a person.
well, and just to tag what Kristina just said, if you folks do have Criterion Channel, they've put up not only Pretty as a Picture of the Art of David Lynch, which is the documentary that came out around this time, but the Art Life documentary that came out a few years ago, which is really, really good. A lot of his short films, including a few I actually hadn't seen, which I was like, oh, what's this one? So they really went comprehensive with it. If you don't have that streaming service, there's Max as a collection of, well, it's mostly just the movies, but highly recommended. This is the time, right? This is the time to check that stuff out.
It's crazy looking at some of his short films, right? Like the ideas that he had in like The Grandmother or whatever, right? Where he's like they're literally like planting a grandmother. Feels like a lot of the same ideas that he like more fleshed out in Eraserhead, and then kind of took a turn that's like, I'm still gonna do weird stuff, but it's not gonna be this kind of that off-putting, right? Like it's not gonna be this world that totally overstimulates you. And I think it's good that he took that direction, because like even Cronenberg would have been like, all right, buddy, like don't do this for your whole career.
Well, I think we can certainly talk about in the after party, which we are going to do tonight. But look at the sound design in Eraserhead. Like you hear that all the way through to like, you know, Twin Peaks: The Return, like just like the sound, like whooshing intensifies is what I remember. Like I watched it with like subtitles on. I was like, amazing. That's whooshing did in fact intensify. That is what happened.
All of his early, or a lot of his early films have like the sound of gushing. Like, I hate gushing a little bit. Like I'm like,
because I'm thinking of something else when it comes to gushing, and I'm like,
well, hey, save it for the after party.
I mean, listen, if it happens in the Marilyn Manson, Patricia Arquette pornos, it stays in the Marilyn Manson.
Exactly.
But Conan, now I see what you did. You set it up, so we went this way, and then we went the other way, and you know, You got
Exactly.
your last one up.
I'm gonna start blasting some sax solos immediately. Yeah, David Lynch's psychosexual neo-noir has aged like fine wine. And I think that Robert Blake's Mystery Man is got to be one of the all-time creepy creeps of film history, easily. So much to love here. I think this is on the underrated side in Lynch's pantheon, and oftentimes forgotten about, and which is crazy to me because it definitely has a lot of scenes that just strike right into the liminal subconscious of the human mind, and I think it's very effective for that. I think it's a magnificent piece of art from a magnificent artist that is lived a great life but is still gone too soon, and I grateful for the opportunity to talk about it with y'all and get into it in depth. And it's really weird and messed up that he's gone. It kind of felt like we would always be in a world with a David Lynch, and it sucks that he's gone.
Yeah. I hate now that when I hear he lived a good life, I think of the Trump Ruth Bader Ginsburg. What can you say? She lived a good life.
What? She died? I'm just hearing this for the first time.
We get more of that in four. You know what's so sad when Trump leaves office? I'm gonna be like 35, and I'm like, no, not in my prime. Damn it, not in my prime.
Who knows if he's gonna live the 4 years? He's old.
All right. Yeah, come on.
But well, join us on the after party tonight on Movie Night Extravaganza.